It is the NCAA Tournament Edition, and we couldn't be more excited to talk about actual March Madness hoops. We're going to have 3 shows for you guys, cut up differently. The play-in games, the Thursday games, the Friday games, first rounders this week. Of course, we'll get down to the second round this weekend. Hold your horses. First things first. Today's show is the play-in games. 4 games, Tuesday and Wednesday. Tip-offs, 11 seeds and 16 seeds. You guys know the drill. Dayton, the field expanded to 68 years ago. It's the name of the show. Jim, how you doing? You ready to talk some pigs?
Great. Yep. I'm out in Vegas, Kai, getting prepped for our eventual trip out here. Can't wait for you guys to join me in a few days here. But yeah, we got a couple of decent pigs. Matthew, you excited for our precious first 4?
Oink oink. Let's do it, baby.
Let's just hop right into it then. Let's start with Tuesday's games. We're starting with the big boys. We're starting Pitt and Miss State, 2 of the last 2 teams in the bracket as at-larges. Obviously, Mississippi State is a 1.5-point favorite currently at BetRivers. This is an offense versus defense type of affair. Jim, early thoughts on Pitt, Miss State?
Yeah, the coach matchup swings really heavily towards Mississippi State for me. I know Pitt's been really good against the spread this year under Capel, but Chris Jans, I just hold him in very, very high regard. And that athletic defense is going to be really frustrating. However, there's some matchup angles that kind of work for Pitt here. They can shoot. They can spread the floor a little bit. Again, we talked a lot about how the SEC hasn't seen teams that can really light it up from the perimeter. Mississippi State has a kind of a rude awakening coming here with Pitt's potency and their multitude of options from the perimeter. We saw how good the offense was in the ACC tournament. I know they got smashed in their eventual loss, but they can really, really score. You need to against this Miss State team. Matt, I'm kind of leaning towards the over from that sense. I think Pitt can find ways to score. Mississippi State maybe owns them inside. Tolu Smith probably gets his pretty easily. But then on the side, the coach matchup, it just kind of makes me lean towards Mississippi State. I can't quite get there to bet it because of the actual on-court matchup. But if anything, for me, it'd be the over.
Yeah, I lean over in Mississippi State as well. I think the coaching edge is real, and the over will certainly play in your favor if any of that regression depth that Mississippi State is owed. Just look at the shot quality, actual versus projected shooting splits. I raise an eyebrow at that as I believe that this is just a bad shooting team, but they are not as bad as they've shot the ball this season. I just don't believe any team in the country can possibly be, in the high 20s from 3-point range and mid 60s from the free throw line. Currently 26.6% are the Bulldogs. Dead stinking last. I mean, they shoot 30%. You probably have some value to the over right there. They make 70% of their free throws. And they also are pretty efficient at running sets out of they get some good cutting action occasionally. Jans will dial up some stuff. I think he'll dip into his bag of playbook tricks, maybe bring out some stuff he hasn't shown this season. Just, 3, 4, 5 possessions where you get an efficient look. Stuff like that matters at the margins, right? Where it's a razor sharp market at this point in the season. You're looking for tiny, minute edges. So I like the coaching edge and I like the regression favorability for both the over and the Bulldogs side.
Yeah, total right now, 132.5 at BetRivers. The problem is it's going to be kind of a slower game. Projected 64 possessions. You got to really hope Mississippi State's hitting. Otherwise, it's a scary over bet. But it could be a close game. You might get some overtime favors because it is March and overtimes happen all the time. You guys pretty much said all the points here. Mississippi State, I trust elite defense over offense in the tournament setting, mostly as a general rule. And Mississippi State has that elite defense, top 10 in the country. I am totally worried about what Jim said about Mississippi State packing it in, playing a team that can actually shoot. We're going to talk about A&M on a different show with Penn State, but these SEC teams have seen poor shooting for for all of the conference season. It's going to be maybe a bit of a shock to the system when these teams can actually hit shots. But as you guys said, Chris Jans over Capel all day long. Mississippi State is the way I lean as well. Consensus lean there on Mississippi State. All right. Yeah, groupthink, not always bad, early, but sometimes bad.
Yeah, let's get that one right.
Let's see if we get groupthink in the 16 seed play-in game matchup of the Tuesday day. SEMO from the Ohio Valley is playing Texas A&M Corpus Christi from the Southland. Corpus Christi is laying 4. Frankly, Matt, I was surprised to see Corpus Christi in the play-in game. I thought they would be above this. They're a pretty good team. All I know about this game for sure is that there's going to be about 100 free throws shot. Your thoughts on this one?
A lot of threes taken too. Corpus Christi gives up a lot of threes, and SEMO will gladly gun. It's one of the faster, more up tempo offenses we've seen. Should be a fun one at bare minimum if you have no real edge on this game, which I don't really at this point, Jim. At least excited to watch what should be a high scoring game if SEMO can dictate the tempo. A lot of shot quality regression, debt owed to Texas A&M Corpus, not to come out as the shot quality bastion to start off this podcast, but they had this as an 8-point game just for reference. So, pretty big number here, way off from the 4 that it's currently sitting at in the market. My gut leans SEMO at the number, but I looked a little closer and it kind of made me, brought up some concerns. So I'm not getting involved right now, Jim.
I took the over already, bet it at 152.5. I think it's a little bit higher than that, 153, 153.5. Mm-hmm. The concern there is no Terry and Murdix for Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Looked like he went down with a really serious injury in the Southland final, did not return. He was already playing on a kind of a gimpy leg, and it did not get better, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. He is their shot creator, highest usage guy, distributor. Not having him definitely hurts, but I was relatively impressed with how they rallied without him against Northwestern State. Owen Deese hit a few shots off the bench, gave them an angle there. This should be pretty up-tempo, and as Kai mentioned, lots of free throws. They kind of get them different ways. Corpus Christi, more of an interior, great rebounding team with Sheila and DeLazar's Keys should eat on the glass in this game. And then SEMO has some big-bodied guards. Chris Harris can really bowl you over. He's a beast. I think he might have some success against a little bit of a smaller Corpus Christi backcourt. Mm-hmm. Kai, if it comes down to a free throw shooting contest, one of these teams is top 2 in the country in free throw percentage. Corpus Christi makes 80% of their free throws. So you have to lean there a little bit, but I just think this is more going to be an up and down points bonanza where neither team can really get stops.
Yeah, points, lean the over as well. I think that's the difference, though, because I think both teams will shoot a ton of free throws. Like I said, it's really hard to beat the second best free throw shooting team in the country. 80% is nuts. Not only do they get there, they make them. And SEMO, 180th. Sure, they could make a bunch of free throws. It's a variance type of stat for sure. But 71% on the year, probably not cutting it. Corpus Christi, I do think, has a little bit of advantage forcing turnovers. And I think they have a coaching advantage too. I think Steve Lutz is a better coach than Brad Korn. It's not a huge mismatch, but I just love the way Lutz, what he's done to this program last couple of years. It's been very impressive. 4 is getting kind of high on the spread there. I'd probably lean SEMO at this point. I did take a little Corpus Christi at 3.5, but 4, I'd probably not lay it. We'll see if the line changes, if Murdix is announced officially out.
Kai, does it matter to you that this entire Corpus Christi team played this exact game last year? Is that helpful?
It's got to help, right? Although I thought Corpus would win last year and they did not. So
yeah, Texas Southern never loses in the play-in game, though.
Yeah, so true.
That's part of it.
Hey, great segue. Let's talk Wednesday's play-in games, and let's start with Texas Southern, who is playing Fairleigh Dickinson. No surprise that both these teams were in the play-in games. Texas Southern was the 8th team in the SWAC, although they were picked to win in the preseason by many prognosticators. Fairleigh Dickinson didn't even win their conference tournament. They got in because of Merrimack not being eligible for the tournament. Texas Southern's laying 2.5 right now at BetRivers. Jim, your thoughts on this game?
I bet -2, Texas Southern. I just think they're better, higher upside. Fairleigh Dickinson's interior defense is going to get smoked in this game. Texas Southern has a strong front court for a SWAC team. We saw in the SWAC tournament, John Walker got banged up in the semis, played only 5 minutes. Came back, was the MVP of the Ken Pom game MVP of the final. So you have him in there. He's going to be a real problem for FDU. FDU's got little guards that can get everywhere. Dimitri Roberts, Grant Singleton, they can hoop. But you got PJ Bird. He's at least somebody you can lock down. PJ Henry, excuse me. There's 2 different PJ guards in the SWAC. Henry can D up at least one of them. Matt, I just like the trajectory Texas Southern is on. FDU, they didn't even win their conference tournament. They're not rolling like most teams are entering this league. I just think Texas Southern's more talented, and they have consistently rolled in this spot over the years with Johnny Jones.
Yeah, I agree. It's just in a game that could get kind of sloppy. These are 2 teams that are in the playing game for a reason, right? They're not going to set the world on fire offensively. I just like Texas Southern's the way they're built, and I think this is kind of the unsung brilliance of Johnny Jones, is he knows he's not going to get JJ Redick type shooters in there. But you got athletes and guys that can get to the glass and get you second, third chances. That gives you a pretty high, stable floor, right? It's kind of like the Houston Light model, fittingly, Texas Southern based out of Houston. They're kind of replicating what Samson's doing. I think that's I feel better betting on that approach than I do on Fairleigh Dickinson, which feels more volatile. And I'm with you, Jim. I just think the NEC thing is going to catch up to them. Such a bad conference. That's all they've played for 3 months. And now that you step out of that into, not that the SWAC's the Big Ten, but still, I think that competition gap actually kind of shows itself here in this game. I'm with you on Texas Southern.
Texas Southern also played a gauntlet of a non-conference, so you can't fully
They're
trust
tested, right?
Their full season numbers. They're like 293rd and 2-point percentage, but they led the SWAC, shot over 50% inside the arc. That's more indicative of how things will go against FDU, I think. Maybe they run into problems, Kai, against the 1 seed afterwards, but I like them in this matchup.
Yeah, is it Purdue next for these teams, or is that different 1 seed?
Yes,
it's Purdue. Purdue.
Good night,
Zach Edey.
Texas Southern more talented. Again, they were supposed to be a lot better this season. They've showed that recently. I am worried about their ball handling. Fairleigh Dickinson's guards are legit. They impressed the heck out of me against Merrimack in that NEC tournament. They almost won it just by themselves. Demetri Roberts, their 5'8" point guard, is
where did they find him?
Incredible shot maker.
He came from Stack. He came with the coach.
One of the
he and Singleton both followed the coach from St. Thomas Aquinas.
Ultimately, I think FDU being the third worst defense in the country kind of shows itself in this one. I also lean towards Texas Southern at 2.5. All right, the last play-in game we got. It's on Wednesday once again, and it's back to the big boys for an 11-seed matchup between Nevada, a team that only 59 bracketologists out of 190 on bracketmatrix.com chose correctly into the field, raising a couple eyebrows, against Arizona State, a team from the Pac-12 who has played in this play-in game, it seems, every single year. Arizona State is -2. Matthew, I hopped in on -1. I'm sorry, guys, for moving the line for you. Whoops, my bad. But interestingly, Kim Pom, I'll credit to Jim here, he pointed out first, has this game Nevada -2. Your thoughts?
This is a battle of two coaches who have not fared well in the NCAA tournament. I believe Bobby Hurley is 1-3 against the spread. And a lot of those, I think half of those have been in the play-in game. So you could argue it gives him an edge because of the familiarity of playing in this spot, but it hasn't boded well for him historically. Steve Alford 6-10 against the number in his tournament resume. So I guess that kind of negates itself. You look at who the Jimmies and Joes are on paper. I like Arizona State's roster a little better. Like I was kind of the Nevada guy all year, but I think they played a little bit above their heads down the stretch. And the lack of depth started to catch up to them. I think Arizona State actually matches up well with them, just with their size and physicality. I think that's where Nevada punished some teams early on. Arizona State's built to negate that, slightly toward the Sun Devils, but my goodness, if you bet this game confidently pre-flop, just be prepared for some frustrating moments down the stretch. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I'm getting such massive deja vu to Arizona State St. John's from a couple of years ago, which I think we said the same thing. Like, if you bet this confidently, good luck, because like both these teams are so erratic. Kai, with Nevada down the stretch, they lost 3 straight games to non-tournament teams. Yeah. 1 away, 1 home, 1 neutral. Like, it wasn't just bad schedule. Like 3 straight games, the teams that are outside of the field. I'm very surprised they made it after that little run in. They weren't crazy. Like, they don't have a bunch of awesome non-conference wins. I don't know, man. It's a very surprising inclusion. We're going to say it on multiple other shows here, but the Mountain West has been abysmal in the tournament. 14-35-1 last 50 games against the spread. This conference, they're on an 0-9 streak right now. It's not just old stuff. It's recent too. I do think this version of the Mountain West has better offenses, so perhaps they can succeed a little more. Usually they're coming out of a rock fight league, but I prefer ASU here. Don't trust either coach. I just like the roster a little better for the Sun Devils. Not in love with the number though, so probably sitting this one out because I can't bet it confidently.
Yeah, Arizona State probably the more higher variance team. If you're going to choose one of these, I agree both are higher variance, but their crazy athleticism kind of points me towards them a little bit more. And again, I don't think Nevada should be in the field. They beat nobody outside of the Mountain West in terms of quality wins. None of them came out of the Mountain West. Sam Houston was at home, I believe. Nevada does handle the ball well, though. That is a point in their favor. They are probably good against pressure, and Arizona State is a scary team to go against. But if you can handle the ball, you can get past that first line of defense and get into the teeth. It is a tough team to score against inside. There are too many athletes here. And Arizona State's kind of a crapshoot offensively, but I'm hoping it's a good crapshoot. I'm leaning towards the Sun Devils here. Bobby Hurley, playing game experience. Why not? Can't hurt. All right, that does it for our play-in game show. Stay with us later this week for our Thursday and Friday previews. Thanks to BetRivers. Good luck in all your bets and enjoy the play-in games.
Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's Best Bets show. We are the three-man weave, ready to walk you through the Thursday slate. Of course, shout out to BetRivers for powering this episode, giving us a shot to talk college basketball to you fine folks. I'm Jim Root, hosting this episode, joined by Kai McEwen, Matt Cox, as always. Not going to really dive into any takeaways, fellas, because we haven't seen the play-in games yet. Spoiler alert, this is being recorded early. However, we're going to get right into the games. Kai, I'm just going to get it going. First one, we're going in chronological order based on tip times, as West Virginia and Maryland. West Virginia looking at about a 2.5-point favorite right now over the Terps. Kai, we talked about how Maryland is maybe getting another Mark Turgeon here who struggled to win in March. Is that going to be the case again with Mr. Willard? I fondly recall betting against them last year and Seton Hall getting absolutely demolished.
Yeah, I would say West Virginia comes in playing the better ball right now. Although I did do some filtering on Bart Torvik. He makes this game a pick since February 1st. So you could say these teams are pretty much equal since February, which, okay, I guess I buy. From a sheer physicality standpoint, Matt, I think it's West Virginia. But Maryland is a very old team. They are tough in their own right. I just think West Virginia has a big advantage on the glass. Maryland plays without fouling, which is key. You can't really let this team shoot 20 or 30 free throws. You're going to lose. Who has the better guards? I think it's probably Maryland, but who has the better coach? Emphatically, it's Bob Huggins. I'm actually pretty on the fence here from a spread perspective. 2.5, I think, is a pretty fair line. I'm leaning towards West Virginia. I probably will put a bet on West Virginia eventually, but right now I'm sitting on my hands.
At the current number, I don't have a strong opinion. I mean, this is one of the few games I got bet up over 1.5 on the opener, up to 2.5 right now with the ears there. I don't know, Jim. Maryland, excuse me, not the biggest team, but they are pretty good defending the rim. I'm not sure they're the best post defense team, but they are, I think, more capable of standing up to West Virginia's size and brute force up front than people might realize. It's not all that different of a team than what we saw last season, right? More of like a positionless team that gang rebounds without, traditional positions with, forwards and guards. Could give Westphal some problems. I just liked what I saw from Westphal in the tournament. So I do lean that way, but this is no bargain if you're looking to lay it. I think you missed your chance to get the best number.
Well, I didn't. I took 2, man. So
sharp.
How about that? Yeah.
Sharp.
I like West Virginia as well. Kai, you mentioned filtering our pal Bart Torvik's site. If you filter for away and neutral games, Maryland falls to like 49th. West Virginia is still a top 20 team. I think that's more indicative of how I perceive these squads. Maryland not playing in College Park, not quite the same. Maybe there's a chance Maryland lives at the free throw line because that's what West Virginia does. They foul a ton defensively, and Maryland can make free throws with their solid guards. But I just generally like the Huggins angle. I like that they are better away from home. I trust them more. The one thing is, Kai, is this Eric Stevenson's final revenge on me, where I bet on him and he goes over 15.
Jim, he's going for 30. He's going for 30 for sure.
If I bet on him, you think he's actually going to score?
Yeah, Jim, he's good. This is the redemption story for you and Eric. It's going to be a handshake agreement. I love it.
I hope so. I need it. Give it to me, Eric. All right, next game up, Virginia and Furman. Matthew, I'll go to you here. The Cavs, the Whoos, laying 5 against the Paladins. Seemingly a decent matchup here for Furman, not a team that's going to batter them in the paint. Different version of Virginia with no Bennett Vanderplas. They do play a little bigger with Shedrick and Caffaro. What do you think?
Right. The question is, are they going to weaponize those guys on offense? They don't really do that. It's more of like a defensive ploy, I think, by Tony Bennett. I think it actually works against them in this matchup because that's where Furman can make you pay with their inverted offense, with the way they can bring Slauson out the perimeter. I also think Furman's found some real staying power with their role players, with how good JP Pegas has been down the stretch, just a great shot making guard. And they got Ben Vanderwall, who's like kind of this unsung hero, come off the bench, just makes stuff happen, flies around, gets offensive rebounds, does the dirty work. I just think they need a little bit more. That was their issue all year. They didn't have enough of that. It was too much Slauson, Bothwell, and Foster to a lesser extent. I think they're getting enough from the role guys now where you're going to need that in a game against Virginia if you're going to pull off an upset, right? You can't just ride star power the whole way. And I like the Dens. It's just the fate of Virginia, Kai. They're not that good. I'm saying it all year. I have to stick to my script on that one. So go Dens.
It's a shame we didn't get the Ben Vanderplas versus Ben Vanderwall matchup
I know.
that everybody wanted.
I agree.
This is the matchup Furman wanted, in my opinion. Virginia's not crazy athletic. Furman really struggles against those type of teams. You saw the NC State 19-point loss earlier this season. I think they kind of get chewed up by athleticism. And you said it, Virginia's pack line conducive to forcing opponents to shoot. That's what Furman wants to do. They do lead the country in 2-point field goal percentage, but they have plenty of knockdown shooters, and they attempt threes at a top 15 rate. Bob Ritchie is data ball, baby. He likes three versus twos, right? Smart basketball. Senior point guard in Bothwell. I look for that in the tournament. That's key. Fantastic coach in Bob Ritchie. Of course, Tony Bennett's no slouch. This is Ritchie's first tournament. Maybe that plays into it a little bit. Maybe Tony Bennett ends up running circles around him. Who knows? Virginia is the oldest team in the field, Jim. They're experienced. Kie Clark was on the Final Four team, for crying out loud. And Furman's defense isn't great. I'm a little bit worried about that. Virginia's offense, certainly not a world beater by any stretch, and no BVP is huge. But that is my only worry in this one. At 5.5, I do lean towards Furman. I have submitted that as a bet, Jim.
Yeah, I thought this was actually a little low. I was surprised. Just in my head, I thought maybe we would get 7 or something. Like Ohio a couple of years ago, I believe, was getting 7 against this Virginia team. Ended up winning outright. Very popular pick. I'm sure Furman is going to be as well. Kai, you mentioned the blowout loss to NC State. They also played Penn State, who is much more in the vein of not crazy athletic, more of a finesse team. And Furman lost by 5. They were able to hang around in that game the whole way. Matt, I don't love the number, but I definitely do lean Furman here. Am I crazy for thinking that it's low? I know KenPom has it 5. I kind of thought Virginia would be laying more.
So I looked at what was the Ohio spread, Jim, that Virginia closed. I think we had the same narrative.
7 or 8.
Yeah, 7. Okay, I thought it was closer to 7, but you're right. I think this Furman team's better than that Ohio team, actually. And this Virginia team's a little worse than that Virginia team. So I think if you just kind of look at that, that's an easy, convenient way to handicap it. But just from that lens, because that was the same thought I had. A lot of these games, I think we'll talk about very short spreads, but it's just indicative of how good the 12-13 line is. So.
Yeah, and I've made the case on Twitter how much I think Virginia is better when Shedrick plays, and like every on-off number paints that picture. We're seeing now, right? And their fans kind of resisted that idea. They said all he does is commit fouls, et cetera, et cetera. But I think he's a stout defender, and now I have to bet against the version that I said is better. It's not super exciting, but Furman, I like especially that it's at 5.5 rather than 5, like getting that extra potential win.
Right.
All right, next up. Mizzou, Utah State, Kai, we got to do it. We got to talk our Tigers. They are playing early in the day out in Sacramento.
Show the shirt.
Come on, baby. Let's go. Fight for old Mizzou. Oh, man. But trying to handicap this, Kai, there are some interesting angles. Maybe I'll let you get to them first. What are you thinking here? It's a Mountain West team in the tournament. They have struggled mightily actually, not just this year, the past 5 years or so. What are your thoughts on this game, our alma mater?
The market is on the move, and I agree with the market. I grabbed plus 2.5 from Mizzou. It's down to 1, fellas. That's right. Money coming on the Tigers
this morning.
It just did. Literally just changed.
Tug of war. Last time it was Utah State. Now it's Mizzou.
Barely Utah State. Open 2.5. Come on. Concern. Mizzou has not won a tournament game since 2010. Mike Anderson. Yeah, it's been 13 years. Crazy. That does not factor into this game. Just a crazy stat, in my opinion. Completely opposite resumes. Mizzou, awesome resume from a actually performance perspective. Terrible predictive metrics. Utah State, weak resume, awesome predictive metrics. Hence, Utah State is favored in this game. KenPom made him a favorite, top 20 in the country. I don't buy that. They have not beaten or played a team from a power conference all season except for Washington State. Every single big win they had was in the Mountain West. All were at home or in the Mountain West tournament when they beat Boise State. Should be a lot of points. Both teams like to shoot threes, play at a high pace. But Matt, I think Mizzou trumps Utah State in athleticism, quickness. I think they're going to cause issues with turnovers. Utah State doesn't play through the post. They don't have a dominant post scorer. They don't even have a great offensive rebounding team. That's huge against Mizzou. It's Mizzou for me, even at +1. I think they win this game.
I disagree. I think Utah State's front line's pretty good. I mean, Trevion Doris was the best player on the floor for them against a vaunted San Diego State Aztec front line. 7'1" guy who I think has had potential since he started at Utah State. Started under the Craig Smith era, stayed the course there, and now is, I think, starting to become a real role player for them. And then Dan Akin, I love, just like an athletic, bouncy rim runner. I think they have more size and they're a more complete roster than it seems like people are discussing. And I think the analytic form of this team is, I mean, look at Bart Torvik's last 10 games. Utah State -8, just based on the last 10 games alone, right? Last 5, it's Utah State -10. Now, I know a lot of that's baked in the some of the home road splits you talk about, playing the Mountain West, beating average teams by huge margins, where Mizzou has had average teams. Yeah. Right. I mean, Mizzou's beaten a lot of bad teams in the non-con, but then let those teams kind of hang around, and it kind of prevented Mizzou from climbing the analytic charts. You could argue in a tournament game against a like-minded opponent, that's where the analytics skew kind of gets normalized or bounces back out in Mizzou's favor. I still like this Utah State team a lot, and I remember vividly watching a Ryan Odom coach team pull off history on TV1 at Beer Park, while TV2 to the right was a Mizzou second half meltdown against Florida State. So I don't know, just some weird deja vu in my mind, Jim. That's where I'm at there.
I mentioned both teams like to shoot threes. Well, one team gives up a ton of threes. That's Mizzou. That's the scary thing. You give up a lot of open threes too, because they gamble. Mr. Hodge is a terrific defensive swiper, but he does gamble, and then sometimes that gets exposed on the back end. If you give up open threes to Utah State, good night. Like, that team is an elite shooting squad, basically from 4 of the 5 positions. Taylor Funk is a sniper. If he's going to get able to launch 10 to 12 threes in this one, that's really, really concerning.
Hey, 1 for 8 his last game, Jim. 1 for 8. He's cold. He's cold.
Good. So he's due theory, huh? How about that? Matt, you mentioned Akin and Dorius. I don't think those guys can guard Kobe Brown. He's too mobile for both of them. He can bully Funk. He can bully Bairstow. He's going to have a big game in this one unless Odom is able to scheme him out some way, but I don't anticipate that happening. So there's actual edges for Mizzou there with Kobe Brown, and then starting to draw double teams. That's how you get open threes. I'm just too scared of the amount of open shots that Utah State's going to get against this defense. That's what scares me. They take care of the ball well enough that Mizzou's probably not going to feed off turnovers. So I'm going to sit this one out, Kai, at least officially. While I'm at Beer Park, I'm going to be betting on Mizzou.
Of course.
Who am I kidding?
How about over?
I'm not going to recommend it. Yeah, why can't both teams score? I
think they will, right? I mean, Kobe Brown could have 40 in this game. Like, if it's just Akin vs. Kobe Brown one-on-one, I mean, Kobe will just go to work. So, yeah, I like a lot of points here.
Total sitting at 154, 155 in the market. It is 162 at KenPom to tell you how much there is a downshift for postseason play. And Mizzou's playing a little slower lately, which is part of it, but I see efficiency in this game. All right, we'll move on. Next up, Kansas. Kai, we go from our alma mater to our super villain. Jayhawks, 1 seed, taking on Howard, looking at minus 21 and a half in the market now. Mm-hmm. Howard, really impressive when Steve Settle plays. They did kind of escape with the MEAC final. Do they have a chance to battle here? Kyle, I'll go to you first.
Biggest spread of the first round before the playing game. Before the playing games get to the 1 seed. I don't really expect KU to struggle here. Here's Howard's results against the top 150 this season. Kentucky lost by 32. James Madison lost by 26. Belmont by 23. Yale by 46. VCU by 10. They actually competed with VCU. Yeah. They have 1 baller, Elijah Hawkins. He's a great player, but they're going to be simply overmatched here. Turnovers are going to be a huge problem. They're 356 in turnover rate, and Kansas' defense is actually pretty darn excellent. The talent levels aren't close here. I lean towards Kansas at the big spread, Matt.
I do too. I mean, their best guards are freshman, sophomore with Shai Oben and Elijah Hawkins. I think it's actually a team that's more, we're happy to be here. What a great building block this is for our program under Kenny Blakeney. That's his second year now, his 3rd or 4th year near. I think it's just like mentally, I think they roll over second half. Honestly, I think Kansas exerts their will, and there's not like a ton of multiple counter punches from the dog here. So I don't know, maybe just a stupid mental psyche thing I was looking at, but I think Howard is just thrilled to be here, especially after that insane win they had against Norfolk in the tournament. I think it's a runaway, though. Kansas, the way they execute, they don't take bad shots. They're going to get the easy looks against the team that should give them easier looks inside. I like the Jayhawks.
Yeah, they're kind of playing with house money. You could make the argument there that stress-free. I don't know. I think it's more about Kansas and how good they are. I expect McCullough to be fine and back for this one after sitting out the Big 12 tournament championship. And that array of wings, McCullough, Dick, Wilson, is so hard to defend for power conference teams, much less a team like Howard that has recruited well and has gotten some decent down transfers. But I don't know how they can handle this KU team. There's not some fear that Howard's going to be all over that. Like they are a good offensive rebounding team, but I think that's fueled more by being in the MEAC than it is having true size. And Kansas, despite not having elite size, it doesn't really catch up to them in this one. So I'm a Kansas guy as well. In this game. Don't edit that, you internet hounds.
Traitors.
All right, Kai, we don't have a spread yet for Alabama versus Southeast Missouri State or Corpus Christi. There's a chance it's higher than 21.5 because of how good the Tide are playing.
Boat race.
I think Alabama rolls. Boat race. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Both teams play too fast. It's going to be a crush.
Yep, that's the problem. Matt, you agree? Kind of a universal.
I was trying to find I feel like we've said this every year about the playing game winner. Like we just auto bet the team that they're going to play. And I was a little worried that maybe we've been foolish in that angle. So I'm trying to dig up the data on that. But yes, off the top of the head, no question. It's an absolute runaway.
I know Wright State got rolled by Arizona last year.
They might have covered, though. They lost by 17. That was like a weird backdoor thing.
Yeah. First half, Arizona was up big, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I can see that being a decent angle there as well. Alabama first half. The travel isn't awesome. You got to go from Dayton to, I believe, Birmingham is where this game is being played.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Next up, Arizona and Princeton. Nope. San Diego State, Charleston. Jim, come on. Read the outline. Stay dialed in. Come on.
Stay dialed. Come on, baby.
Mentioned the Mountain West stuff with Utah State. They are 0-9 against the spread in their last 9 games. This conference as a whole, last 50, 14-35 with one push. Like it is a long-running trend of struggles for this conference in the tournament. Now we got San Diego State laying 5 against Charleston. Matt, the CAA has actually been sneaky good. 22-11 in the big dance against the spread. They have lost 3 in a row, so it's not a super hot recent trend. But where are you looking here? Charleston, maybe a team that wants to run. San Diego State more going to dominate you in the half court. What are you looking at?
And I feel like a hypocrite. I was saying the Aztecs were a team I was looking to back for a deep run, and they looked pretty impressive in the Mountain West tournament. I know they fended off some very desperate efforts from capable teams, and I guess maybe got lucky to catch Utah State, who was stone cold from 3 in that title game. I still think it's a really complete team with a little more upside than the usual Aztecs have. All of that said, my best bet's Charleston. A big reason why this is a West Coast to East Coast travel. The Aztecs will be playing at noon local time out there in Orlando. Kind of got screwed with this draw. I mean, to win that tournament and the conference, you sweep both, and then to have to travel east to play a team that's red hot in Charleston, who stays in their own same time zone. Pat Kelsey can coach. We've seen him play really well in this dog setting before. I know Dutcher's a great coach too, but Charleston, the one thing we talk about with the offensive rebounding, even though people look at the mid-majors who can offensive rebound and think they can't replicate that against the big boys, I actually think they can. That's why a lot of the giant killer formulas pop for teams like Charleston who can shoot threes and create possession on the offensive glass. It's more about effort than it is like size or physicality, right? It's like we want to go to the glass versus we don't. And I think that angle actually will play well against the Aztecs, who are a good good rebounding team, but not invincible on that end. So I like Charleston. I mean, I like them a lot. My best bet.
Yeah, I love both teams. It kind of sucks they're playing each other, to be honest. But it's not a bad draw for Charleston, though. They needed to avoid a team with an explosive offense that would welcome a fast-paced game and play a lot of possessions. That's not San Diego State. Their offense is definitely better than in the past, but they still prefer a half-court game. They aren't Alabama or an Iowa or Gonzaga. 3-point looks will be there for Charleston. Ironically, they've shot very poorly from deep, but they have shooters, and they do like to let it fly. They're top 10 in the country in three-point attempt rate. San Diego State, 280th in three-point attempt rate allowed, tend to pack it in more. Charleston's very deep. Just about every single player also has a giant chip on his shoulder, which I love in a tournament setting. They're basically constant underdog mindset, a lot of energy. But San Diego State's experienced. They're also deep. It's kind of a toss-up when it comes to who wants it more, Jim, I'll say. Charleston's defense, to Matt's point, with the giant killer thing, it's no joke. I think they're going to make this a pretty tough game. We saw them beat Virginia Tech and Kent State in the non-conference. They beat Colorado State by 10. They hung with UNC. I think they can win this game. I do lean their way, Jim, at plus 5.5 right now.
Yeah, 5.5. That's what we're getting Matt his best bet price there. Love having that hook, I'm sure. I'm very split on the side here. I think it's actually an okay matchup for San Diego State too. I was worried about them getting Drake or maybe a different, potentially an Oral Roberts one would have spooked me big time for the San Diego State team. But Charleston, like you said, Kai, not actually the elite shooting team that we've seen.
Yeah.
The angle I like a lot here is the under. I think Charleston has actually proven to be a bit of a pace taker. They've played some really slow games against teams that will play slow. And San Diego State has hit the brakes since league play started. They ran a lot in the non-con and then slowed it way down in Mountain West play, played 3 slow games in the Mountain West tournament. Their defense is really, really stout, best one in that conference. So I like the under. I think this game ends up playing a lot slower than Charleston wants. And hopefully, Matt, for you, that helps the underdog. Less possessions for that sample size to bear out. So I'm probably not going to bet the side unless I do something live. I've said all season Charleston is a live betting team, get in one way or the other. Might do something with that once the game starts, but pre-flop only going to go with the under.
I'll say this. If the Aztecs are smart, they should look to push, because you're going to get a team that's looking to crash the glass. You'll get easy looks in transition if you want to run here. But if you're Dutcher, I wouldn't pigeonhole yourself to the half court. I think you could get in trouble.
All right, next up, as I alluded to earlier, Arizona, Princeton. Finally going to get to this one, the 2 versus 15 matchup. Princeton also kind of escaped from the Ivy. We're able to get a big one there. They are getting 14 and a half right now at BetRivers is the spread. Kai, feels like Arizona can smash in the paint here with their dominant front court duo. Princeton has a decent paint presence, but they're just not the same size, caliber of athlete that Arizona has. And Princeton's defense doesn't scare me in terms of the point guard shortcomings that Arizona has. So what do you think of this game?
Yeah, Ivy teams tend to give power squads trouble in the dance. I don't have stats to back that up, but it's because they play really smart. And their offense, the Princeton offense, is very difficult to prepare for, especially if you haven't seen a lot of it. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if Princeton hung tough in the first half here before Arizona kind of makes adjustments in the second. This is also by far the best teams Princeton has played all season. They played a Hofstra team that ranks 90 in KenPom. Other than that, it's Yale. That's basically it. A little bit worried about that. Matt, Princeton does have a lot of versatile size. It's not Arizona's size, but it's something. But if Tosan gets in foul trouble, Princeton's best player, they're screwed without him. I like that he can pull Ballo or Tubelis away from the rim in a little Princeton offense, facilitate, initiate from the top of the key. But if he gets in foul trouble, they're done. Zona has too much talent. Again, I think Princeton can hang for a bit, and maybe the angle is Princeton first half here. But Zona has a pretty strong track record of decimating inferior competition this season, and I think they just might do it again.
Yeah, I'm looking at since 2005 per Bet Labs, Ivy is 11 and 10 against the spread, but 1.75 cover margin. So I think that's more indicative of what you're saying. Yep. Maybe some bad variance there swung against the actual record. But yeah, I think the nuance of what the Ivy schools run tends to be somewhat of it's tough to solve for the coaches outside of the league. They don't know it as well as the coaches inside the league. Maybe first half Princeton, if you really want to get involved here with the dog, but I just think
that's what I'm thinking.
It's men versus boys, though, and that's what I worry about. Like over the course of 40 minutes, like I know Tosan's kind of a physical specimen. He actually looks like a Pac-12 player, but no one else in this roster. I mean, it's just it's a categorically different beast here. That's my concern if you're a Princeton backer. Nothing for me officially, though.
Yeah, I'm starting to like that first half angle as well. The also interesting thing is you perceive, the Ivy rep's going to have a bunch of lethal shooters in that offense. It's not really Princeton. They don't have a ton of dominant perimeter players. They don't take that many threes. Matt Alaco is the one who's really come on strong, but it's not like a dotting the perimeter with a bunch of guys you have to stay glued to. I do think it feels like the kind of thing where Arizona will wear them down, extend to the second half. I know we bet Purdue last year against Yale, and it did take the size some time to really smash that interior, but I think we see something similar again here. I just don't love fading Arizona in the favorite spot.
And Jim, who can forget?
Okay,
Penn first 15,
yes.
16 seed against Kansas, baby. That hit the Ivies. They come out strong.
Yep. Yeah. That's probably another good look there is first 15 because of.
Go
ahead, Matt.
Like the Princeton and Charleston thing, it just hit me. I think we'd agree they're better shooting teams than how they've shot this year, which makes them impressive because they've had success despite not shooting the lights out. Right? They've kind of found other ways to score inside the arcs. So I kind of think it gives them upside as like a team that's looking to pull off a giant killer.
Yeah, I mean they play mostly through bigs. Kelman and Woolman are like their two highest used players by far. It's not some sort of perimeter barrage. All right. Next up, Arkansas, Illinois, highly intriguing round one matchup here of teams that I think you could objectively say underperformed this season, disappointed a little bit to their talent levels. I definitely respect both coaches, but we've got Arkansas laying 3, Matthias, 2.5 in some places, depending where you're able to shop around. But BetRivers, I can't Kai, you're in Illinois.
Yeah,
I can't access BetRivers out here in the desert, unfortunately. But Matthias, what are you looking at with this game? Arkansas, Illinois, the 8-9 matchup.
I don't like this version of Illinois. It seems like I'm the only person, though, as I've thought through it over the night, that is interested in betting Illinois just at the number, because we know they can rise and play to, basically as good as anyone in the country. But Jim, you mentioned this last night. We haven't seen that version like in 3 months. So maybe that version just ended never coming back. The one that beat UCLA and Texas, two legit 2 seeds. Arkansas with their talent, Musselman with his tournament track record. I guess that's the right side. I just can't lay 3. That seems too many for a team in Illinois who I still think has big time upside.
I see across the board 2.5 right now, but I bet this game closes 3.5. I think people are going to keep betting the Hogs. Both these teams have look out, here they come. That's what people have said about both these teams several times this season, and they just haven't lived up to it. Even Arkansas, man. 2 talented teams. Arkansas is more talented. Really think Nick Smith is still that game changer that can facilitate a deep run in the tournament here. It's going to be fun. Both teams are really up tempo. Both teams have a ton of length across all 5 positions. I do think Illinois will get to the line, but their offense has been stagnant lately, man. They take such bad shots. And I think that's going to be a problem in the tournament. And Arkansas attacks the rim. Illinois pretty much built to stop that action, but I think they find more success in Illinois' offense. I don't think it's as cut and dry as people think, Jim, for Arkansas. Kind of agree with Matt. There might be some value on Illinois eventually here. If we're in Vegas and it gets 3.5, I might lean towards the Illini, but Musselman has shown he can eke out wins in the dance. So lean towards Arkansas at 2.5.
Yeah, these are 2 pretty similar teams in my mind, very flexible rosters with a lot of different ways you can play, but neither team can shoot at all. It's going to be a lot of brick threes going on in this one. Unfortunately, only Illinois takes a lot of threes. Arkansas is at least smart enough to not take them because they know they're not very good at it, so they get downhill more. And Illinois' defensive goal is to get you off the 3-point line. They rank top 25 in 3-point attempt rate against. So if you're funneling Arkansas off the line into the paint, that's doing exactly what they want you to do. Like, that's ideal for them. So I think that's a pretty ideal matchup angle. I do have some concerns about Arkansas's fouling tendencies and Illinois living at the free throw line, but Illinois doesn't make free throws. So that's not really as big of an advantage as it could be in that one. I like Kai said, I've kind of been waiting on both these teams to have their surge upwards, and we haven't seen it. But I do think Arkansas has looked a little bit more high upside lately. Illinois hasn't hasn't pulled off an impressive win since like November. No Q1 wins since November. So I'm going to lean towards Arkansas. I don't love the number, but I think it sounds more fun to be on the must bust than right now the way the Underwood, Illinois train has kind of derailed. All right, next up, going to Iowa and Auburn, another 8-9 game here, looking for the honor of playing Houston, likely in the second round. Kind of 2 different teams, whereas I perceive Arkansas and Illinois as similar. Very, very defensive interior with Auburn, lighted up offensive team with Iowa. Who has the edge, Matthias, looking at a spread of, can't find it right now.
Auburn -1.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Kai, Matthew, too.
I kind of like Iowa as much as I hate their defense. The reason is pretty simple. I don't think Auburn consistently attacks their opponent's weakness just because those guards can kind of go rogue. That's my concern. Wendell Green, Katie Johnson. Like, you got Jonah Ream up front. You got Jalen Williams, the guys that can probably punish this very brittle front line for Iowa. But I don't think they're going to do. I think they sometimes can get off script. I think that plays to Iowa's favor, especially get some long misses, some rebounds that lead to transition opportunities where Iowa's absolutely lethal. They can find cheaters there with space and the open floor. I lean their way. This one is such a live betting game for me, though, right? I feel like there's going to be some massive back and forth runs in this. So that's probably what I'll be targeting here. Pre-flop, this feels like a real crapshoot, though.
This is a pillow fight of an 8-9 matchup, man. In my opinion, both teams are way overseeded. Neither inspire confidence. I don't think either will make a deep run. McCaffrey's never made a Sweet 16 in 23 years of coaching. Actually, 23 plus years of coaching, 25, 26, whatever. Iowa's really weak defensively, but Auburn's erratic. It's very possible guys like Wendell Green and Katie Johnson are cold, and Auburn's simply limited if they are cold. If they're hot, great team. If they're not, they're in trouble. Whereas Iowa's offense is very consistent, reliable. They're scary good, top 5 in the country offensively. Auburn has the athleticism edge. They have more length, but Iowa's so versatile on offense, I don't think it matters. They can shoot, post. Theoretically, Auburn has bodies that can check Murray. Broom's a good stopper for Bracha. It's just a tough toss-up here, Jim. Probably my least confident game, honestly, Auburn, Iowa right now. The total is kind of a toss-up as well.
Sorry, having some internet connection issues
That's okay.
over here. This one is a very big coin flip for me. I have a hard time getting a handicap angle going. You've got Big Ten versus SEC, two conferences I think are probably going to largely underperform, in the dance. Not a huge fan of that either. Tend to ride more with the defensive team, which would lead me to Auburn, but I'm not fully ready to trust them yet either. I'm going to let this one permeate in my brain a little bit longer before I make a wagering recommendation on it. Let's go to a more fun matchup, Matt. One that has me pretty excited. Duke versus Oral Roberts. Got your Blue Devils laying 6.5. They've gotten a lot of love because of how much better they played of late. They're healthier. But may I remind you, it was against the worst ACC in years. Right. It wasn't like they were blowing away some top dominant conference. They got shorthanded Virginia. They got shorthanded Miami when Omier went down. Maybe there's some holes to punch in just how well they're playing at this stage. And Oral Roberts is not an underdog you want to take lightly. Everybody shoots on that roster. They've got a true star in Ace Smith, possibly the best player on the floor here. What do you think with your Blue Devils, Matt, laying 6.5?
Yeah, brutal draw for, honestly, both teams. I think Oral Roberts was second weekend caliber, but to catch Duke, I know this is where we disagree. I do think Duke's like a legit top 10, maybe even top 5 team right now, the way they've been playing, even with all the asterisks you want to slap on the recent run. Covered 5 of the last 6, can point to real reasons why they are light and day better. With Lively kind of popping as a legit rim protector. They've kind of balanced the minutes with him and Filipowski really nicely. Proctor is all the way there. The guy I thought we'd see preseason. Roach looks like he's kind of doing the old clutch thing that we saw carry Duke in a couple of games last year, despite all the talent they had. Just a lot of talent. And, while Shire is not, he still has a lot to prove as a coach. He's certainly looked a lot better, especially in some of these tighter games where the pace has slowed down. He's shown he can execute. Pretty important here. I like Oral Roberts' first half, though. I think they're going to struggle to guard the Vanover pick and pop dynamic that Oral Bob is so good at. I think they'll adjust and kind of their talent exerts its advantage in the second half. But first half, I think Oral Roberts kind of similar to my Princeton angle. I like Oral Bob first half.
Duke has not played a top 30 team since November 25th. So all 9 of those wins, they just rattled off. None of them top 30 teams. ACC's weak. But they are probably the best 5 seed right now, the way they're playing. They're playing more like a 2 or a 3, I would say. I'd give you that, Matt. Oral Roberts the most dangerous 12, though, for my money. They're an old team. They've played together for many years. Asmus and McBride, that's arguably a better backcourt than what Duke has right now.
Relaxed.
At this age, the current version? What? Wait,
no, I think it's arguable. It's absolutely arguable.
Yeah. I think
Asmus is the best. Ace is maybe the best player on the floor, but I know McBride's good, but come on, he's not better than Proctor.
McBride was a top 100 recruit at Kansas.
I know. Right he's got pedigree. He's not better than the other Duke guards. No, I think there's a big drop off.
I think it's arguable.
McBride.
I think it's arguable. Right, Duke is the biggest team in the country. Oral Roberts has Vanover. They have a muscle guy with Patrick Mwamba. Oral Bob has to hit shots. They can definitely do that. They're not going to turn the ball over. They're not going to make stupid mistakes. I think that's key for a giant killer, a team that won't beat itself. The question is, can they keep Duke off the glass? I'm not really sure they can. Duke's offensive rebounding is pretty ridiculous. They do have the more athletic team. But possession count, though, Jim, could be sub 70. It could be a pretty slow game, which would favor Oral Roberts. I can't help but remember Oral Roberts losing to Houston by 38 earlier this season. Perhaps extreme athletes, physicality is a problem, but this Duke team isn't Houston. I want to see 7 for Oral Roberts before I make a bet here, but I lean towards Oral Roberts.
Yeah, I'll probably bet Oral Roberts first to 15, even more narrow than Matt's first half angle. I think that offense is just going to be like, whoa, okay, everybody on this floor can shoot. I helped too far off of Mwamba and he made a 3. I helped too far off of Thompson and he made a 3. It's going to be maybe a blitz to start, but Duke does have the size athleticism to wear them down. Matt, it feels a little like the Duke UNC Wilmington game from like 6 years ago, where it was a really fun underdog that everybody was excited to back. and Duke eventually won by 8 and kind of took care of business. I believe covered that game as well.
Yeah, barely they did though, I think. Yeah.
So it that scares me off just getting excited about the fun dog here. But I want to narrow it down, like I said, isolate a little bit of an earlier segment and get on the offense of Oral Roberts. We'll see what Duke does long term in that game, though. All right, next up, Texas and Colgate. Raiders definitely a darling for everybody. They have just repeatedly won the Patriot Tournament. It's basically been the Colgate Invitational. They've been in this event repeatedly. All these guys have played in the NCAA Tournament. The Texas is hyper experienced too. It's not really the edge you want there. And man, is there an athletic gap between these two teams. Yeah. It is a gulf, a chasm, an ocean. Texas laying 13.5, 14. Kai, is this another one where we should be looking first half? What do you think?
Yeah, it's maybe one of the better 15 seeds we've ever seen in Colgate. They have a top 45 offense. They're number 1 in the country in effective field goal percentage, number 1 in 3-point percentage. Weirdly, 335th in free throw percentage. That one doesn't really add up. They move the ball really well. They take really good shots. And here's the athleticism point. We thought Arkansas, at least I did, would overwhelm them last year with athleticism. They held tough, man. They should have beaten Arkansas. Texas should overwhelm them, but give Colgate's big some credit. Records and Woodward are solid players. They are pretty strong inside. Counterpoint, Auburn beat them by 27 this year. So that kind of throws it out the window if you want to do the athleticism comparison. I don't really see how Colgate stops Texas, Matt. The Longhorns probably get whatever they want offensively. But again, Colgate plays smart. They do rebound well as a team defensively. It's a lot of points to lay against an experienced and smart team like Colgate. I do kind of lean their way as a 13.5-point dog.
I lean toward Colgate, but just to add to your counterpoint, I mean, remember that Arkansas game? It was basically a tale of two games. It was Arkansas comes out and sort of plays with its food, and then who was it? Gets the sky hook over what's his face, and then Colgate does the little man taunt, and then they basically poke the bear. The bear, Records. Yeah, Records does it, and then Arkansas like, oh, okay, you're gonna taunt us, and then they just unleashed pressure, and Colgate could not get a look. The rest, I mean, like I think if that game plays out over a full 40 minutes. Arkansas wins by 30. And if Texas comes out with that kind of defensive intensity, I worry that's what happens again. But if they don't, Colgate can run their stuff, they make shots, then you got to play catch up. And that's where I think, again, I like a first half angle here with the dog. But it's also a better live bet. I think you key in on how aggressive is Texas going to defend. If they're going to commit to, picking up, getting in jock straps, then I think they're a really good bet here as a favorite against the trendy dog pick. But I think I have to see it first. So it's a live bet for me, or first half Colgate bet.
Yeah, I kind of like Texas here. I just think the athleticism edge is too overwhelming. And like you said, once Arkansas really turned it on, that game went from 33-19 to 85-68, like a 66-30 swing. Like
Colgate did not cover that game. Yeah.
No, yeah, it was wild. They had a 19-0 run going into halftime. Last year, Colgate got maybe the dream matchup you could have, a super overseeded Wisconsin team that doesn't have an athleticism edge, and Colgate still couldn't get it done, ended up losing by 7, right around that number, Kai. I believe it was like 7.5.
Yep.
Had a dramatic couple of late free throws in that game. It'd be a Texas lean for me there. Have not bet it yet, though. Still waiting on that assessment. Next up, Northwestern is back in the NCAA tournament. Purple Cats comfortably make it this year. 7 seed. Now they're taking on Boise State, yet another Mountain West team, the conference that has really struggled to cover so far in the NCAA tournament in recent years. Northwestern laying 1.5. Kai, what do you think of the Purple Cats and the Broncos?
Most boring matchup of the first round by far.
Yeah, I agree.
Projected 65 possessions, 128 total now at BetRivers. It's gotten bet down.
It's on True TV. It's good. I think the program was good here. It's a True TV. Put it back burner of the primetime spot. Smart.
Yeah, 2 top 15 defenses, both play tough. They don't really cede an inch. They match up well with each other in terms of size. They both protect the defensive glass. Northwestern's a pain in the butt to score against inside. I think it's a pretty big toss-up here. I think Boise's a better team, but Northwestern has that never say die attitude. Again, I go back to the chip on the shoulder thing. Northwestern's full of those guys. Coaching, Leon Rice over Chris Collins all day long. So point in Boise's favor. Guards, Northwestern probably has a better backcourt, but Marcus Shaver might have claim to best player on the floor. TBD, toss-up, arguable. Matt, I'm not choosing a side quite yet. I'll have to wait till Vegas. Your thoughts?
I lean Northwestern, and I don't feel good about it. I don't. I think Boo Boo is best player on the floor. Other profound thoughts here.
He probably is.
I think Boise's switchability is valuable. I think Rice did a nice job weaponizing that this year. They don't really have like a legit big. They have Tyson Degenhardt and Zabuzi Agbo from Texas Tech and Najee Smith, who's sort of a Swiss Army knife guy, all long, versatile, can maybe create some mismatch issues. But I still think the guard play of Northwestern and their interior rim protection is the difference here.
Matt, tell me why I shouldn't bet the under in this game. Why is this?
Yeah, I can't find one. I can't find one. You should do it. This is an endorsement right here. I'm live on air. Yep.
I would be a little surprised if it hit 65 possessions. Boise has been they slowed down in the postseason. They shockingly had a 71 possession game against Utah State, but the game before that was 71 in overtime. They had a 59 possession game late with San Diego State. I think this turns into a grind. Both teams have very stout defenses as well, so I would probably be betting the under in that one. Next up, Houston, Northern Kentucky. Shocked to see a little bit of money come towards Northern Kentucky on the early betting markets. It was open 20, definitely hit 19. Now I'm seeing 19 and a half out there. Kai, we have a strong lean here. We basically raced to the podium to get a best bet in. So I'm going to let you take it because you beat me.
Yeah, I actually grabbed 18 and a half at a book I saw here. It is 19 at BetRivers right now. I think it's a bloodbath. Houston's my best bet. I bet it closes over 20, especially when Sasser's announced in, which I expect him to be. Northern Kentucky plays a funky zone. It's super susceptible to offensive rebounding, and that is where Houston has the edge. Top 5 in the country in offensive rebounding rate. Kelvin Sampson practices with bubbles on the rim in practice like all season long. They just do rebounding drills. It's a team built to rebound. They live for it. Northern Kentucky, 333rd nationally in defensive rebounding rate. Not great. I don't see how NKU scores either. They're experienced. They have a very good backcourt, but Houston is swarming, way more athletic, way tougher. Matt, I think it's a matchup nightmare for NKU. And the Horizon, as we know, have gotten blitzed the last few tournaments. So Houston minus 19 is my best bet.
I love it. I'll just play devil's advocate for those who want to hear counterpoints, not to be overly groupthinky here. Marcus Sasser, I think there's a real risk he does not play his normal workload or is not 100%. I think that's a notable thing here. You can certainly see them being up 20 at half and like, all right, Marcus, you can sit out. We got a game in 48 hours, so we don't need you tonight. Secondly, Northern Kentucky's guards are really underrated. Like another Horizon thing has been we've beaten that into the ground, but their guards are really good. Like can make shots. Warwick and Vincent and Rhodes and Faulkner. I mean, like guys who can make shots off the dribble and from range. If you're a 16 seed trying to compete, you're going to need to make some tough shots. So there are some tough shot makers on this roster. And the zone, while it's going to be a haven for offensive rebounding, it still might be a wrench in Houston's general offensive rhythm. So I can see that actually going both ways. That's 3 feeble points in the favor of the North Shim. I will be on Houston myself. But if Northern Kentucky's hanging around with Houston and we're like, here's that Houston offense again, can't score. I think that's also could be coupled with the fact that NKU's hot and, maybe it's a closer game than we think.
Yeah, also probably going to be low possessions. That's one other thing in the advantage of the dog here. But I think the efficiency gap is going to be massive. Like we could see Houston go 1.1 points per possession because they get a million offensive rebounds, and NKU struggles to hit contested jumpers and is down at like 0.7 points per possession. Last time Houston was a super high seed and played a Horizon team was 2 years ago. They played Cleveland State. DeJon Jarreau got hurt immediately. But Houston grabbed 49% of their misses and won by 31. Like absolutely smashed.
It's going to happen.
It's like the most obvious matchup angle to me, where they will have 20 offensive rebounds if they have any desire to do so, and they rebound rapidly. So I think they will. Even in a low possession game, I like Houston. I will be betting Houston first half, probably for more than full game, but I will be betting both of those. I think they're both very valid angles.
You brought up the North Carolina, Texas Southern Precedent in 2017. We talked about how it was most obvious, and it was 103-64. UNC grabbed 20 offensive rebounds, 49% of their misses. So, just a relevant precedent there.
Yeah, and that's one where that was a faster game, but I think we could see a miniature version of it because of the tempo here. Next up, Tennessee and Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns. Getting 10.5 against the Vols. Matthias, I think people want to pick and bet against Tennessee because of Noah Ziegler and Rick Barnes' history in the tournament. Should they be doing so in this game?
You told me not to fall back into the trap of betting a highly power-rated Tennessee while ignoring their execution flaws, which have shown up multiple times in postseason formats. I'm going to be stubborn. I think I'll probably back Tennessee here again. Just a bad matchup for Louisiana. I think this feels like, as we've said, a strength on strength. One game that comes to mind as I continue my random NCAA tournament game precedents, Cal State Fullerton against Purdue a couple years back, where it's like, Fullerton's awesome on the glass. Okay, well, against Purdue, what's that going to do for you, right? So I think Louisiana, with their size and physicality up front, Tennessee is just the absolute biggest, baddest team physically in the field, arguably. So they negate that. Can they execute on offense? Probably not. I'm going to lay 10.5. They're going to be up 5 late. I'm going to be pissed off that they can't score, but I think Tennessee does advance here, and probably if they're making shots, it should be a blowout. But that's a big if.
Louisiana is going to be a sexy pick here. I'm not so sure. I think it's like the worst matchup possible for them to draw of the 4 seeds. No Ziegler, but there's plenty of talent on Tennessee to get to the second weekend. Louisiana's played one power team all season. That was Texas. They lost by 28 points. Jordan Brown is great, but he's going to be smothered by some really strong players in Tennessee. Maybe Louisiana gets to the line, but they will have trouble scoring inside and attacking the rim. Tennessee's defense is number 2 in the entire country, number 2 in effective field goal percentage. They're just really tough to score on. On the other end, Louisiana's defense is so-so. It's just a huge talent gap between Tennessee and Louisiana. And the biggest point here, Jim, Tennessee blows out inferior competition. That is why they're rated so highly in analytics. They've beaten teams 10 times by 30 or more points this season. 10 times by 30 or more, and one team was 29. So basically 11 teams they've beaten by 30. I think they can do it again. I lean towards the Vols.
Yeah, I wish Louisiana was better defensively. That would be what would get me excited about this matchup. Tennessee gives up a ton of threes. No one has made them all year. Hello, SEC. That's normal. But Louisiana can shoot. They don't prefer to. They're pretty low ranked in 3-point attempt rate, but they make threes. And so if they get hot here, perhaps they have a chance to compete going against a team that allows that kind of frequency. But yeah, like the ideal matchup with Louisiana was, okay, you have this star big man, Jordan Brown, former 5-star recruit. Now you have to go against a really stout front line. Plavsic, Kamwa, going to be hurling bodies at him in there. That isn't ideal for the Cajuns. I'm not sold on where to go with this one, but I'm mostly scared of the way Tennessee. I know they've lost early in tournaments, but they beat Longwood by 32 last year. They blew out Wright State a few years back, just absolutely dominated. I think they're more of a susceptible to power conference competition that can match athleticism and knock down triples. So I'm going to sit that one out.
I'm pretty sure we all thought Longwood would compete last year with Tennessee.
Yep.
And it was never close. It was never close.
Yep. That was, I think I bet like under 34.5 biggest blowout last year. And it got close. This was one of them that got super close. All right. Next up, Texas A&M versus Penn State. The Aggies laying 3. I think a lot of people are surprised they got a 7. People are saying the committee disrespected them because Buzz Williams was mean to the committee the prior year.
I hope that was the case.
It's a goofy narrative.
It's garbage.
But Matt, I've been hoping that Tennessee or the Texas A&M's compact defense would face somebody that can knock down threes for a while. And now they face maybe one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country, both in terms of volume and efficiency. And I don't think A&M's offense is going to really bother. I mean, they're athletic. They will get to the rim. They will seek fouls, but Penn State doesn't really foul. They're very disciplined. Shrewsbury's a great coach. Penn State's my best bet here. +3. I think the matchup is fantastic for them. Am I right? Am I wrong, Matthias?
I see 2 teams that are really undervalued, very underseeded, playing really well right now, and got screwed by being pinned against one another, especially when you factor in that both coaches are excellent. I will likely be picking the winner to beat Texas, as much as I have a renewed respect for Texas, but I do think both match up well with Texas in that next matchup. Kai, on this one, I don't know, man. Booty ball, Jalen Pickett. A&M certainly physical enough and tenacious enough defensively to at least counter that to some degree. I think they also have a pretty big advantage in their front line. Mm-hmm. And Buzz is a good tournament coach. I think he knows that's where they have an edge. That's where he should be trying to put his chips. If he commits to that, I like A&M on the nose, but I sort of see where Jim's leaning here. Just the fact that Penn State's playing so well, the way they can spread you and shoot it. So the Nittanies could be a good look too.
I mean, this is the exact matchup we wanted for Texas A&M, right? A&M has lived playing bad shooting teams in the SEC. It's the worst shooting 3-point conference in America, like we've said 100 times. What happens when they play a team that can shoot and lives by and dies by the three? That's Penn State, top 10 in the country in three-point shooting. They get hot in a hurry. They stay hot. They handle the ball. And Jalen Pickett, I know A&M is physical and has length. I don't think anybody can really contain him. He's so versatile, and he's an All-American. He's going to be the best player on the floor. A&M also relies on bully ball. They rely on offensive rebounding, attacking, getting fouled. Penn State has seen plenty of that style play in the Big Ten. They're a terrific defensive rebounding team despite their size, and they also play without fouling. Penn State's also one of the most experienced teams in the country. They play all upperclassmen. They're all really old. I think they're over a 4-point average on experience, aka they're all seniors plus. Give me the Nittany Lions here, +3. I totally endorse Jim's decision here.
Yeah. Another point there on the shooting thing within the conference, the free throw within the SEC, foul rate's very high in that league. The refs call a lot.
True.
And so now you're playing Penn State, and if you're going to take away A&M's primary source of offense, which I think they're second in the country in percentage of points scored at the free throw line. Yes, second. Yeah. All right. You know what, Jim? I'm bad in Penn State. I'm convinced.
Yeah. You see Penn State's like, oh, you have size? Big deal. We play size every single day.
Yeah.
Zachy,
TJD.
Yeah,
right.
Lost to Purdue by 2. They beat Purdue once. Like they are capable of pulling off that upset. Wait, did they beat Purdue? Am I making that up?
I don't know if they beat Purdue.
No, they didn't. They got triple swept, but they competed.
Yeah, they competed.
Dexter Dennis seems like a great matchup for Pickett, but I'm with Kai. I think he's just too good and is almost matchup proof in the way he attacks and is a unique interior scorer as a guard. So yeah, Penn State +3, best bet. All right, last game on the outline for Thursday, UCLA versus UNC Asheville. I got to be honest, Kai, this game has not super been on my radar here. Bruins -18. The Big South teams have typically not fared overly well in the tournament. We talked about how Longwood got absolutely demolished last season. This feels like UCLA just kind of out executes them, limits their offense. The only two, it's very Jones and Pember reliant. UCLA is good enough to limit that. What are you doing with this one?
Yeah, Jalen Clark's going to be a problem eventually, but it's not going to be a problem here. Asheville has Drew Pember, who's a pro, and Tajion Jones, who can get piss hot from deep. That's about it, though. You stop them, you stop the Bulldogs, and I kind of I think Mick Cronin will hone in on that. They have the 6th best three-point percentage in the country. They have the 12th highest free throw attempt rate. Nobody gets to the line more than Pember in the entire nation, but UCLA's defense is really good. They're actually number 1 in the country right now defensively. They're solid in every single aspect. UNC Asheville cannot handle the ball. That's going to be a problem. They're shaky. UNC Asheville is old. They have experience like many other mid-majors here that we like. But I think UCLA just overwhelms the mat with talent on the other end. There's no match for Jaime Jaquez. There's no match for Tiger Campbell. Asheville is by far the weakest 15 seed. And they also lost to Arkansas by 34 this year. I think we've seen them against power competition. They just don't stack up. So I probably will take UCLA in this one.
Yeah, you definitely have to monitor the injury situation with Bona for UCLA. I don't know if it matters in this matchup, I guess, but I think they win, like they advance. But if you're looking to back UCLA, I'd like to feel better about having your best defensive big up front. Not that he'll guard Drew Pember, but certainly would see action on him and could negate Pember's rebounding, which is really how he scores in the Big South. Like, he's an awesome player, can shoot it, super skilled, former Tennessee transfer, right? Clearly looks like a SEC player in that conference, but he does a lot of his damage just on the glass. You're not doing that against UCLA. So, but again, without Bona, maybe he does find some success there. That's my one angle with this one. Make sure you get his status, and that should be a key part of this handicap.
Yeah, you'd like to have Clark too to throw at Tajion Jones, let him blanket him, but I don't think it catches up to them here. We saw UCLA. I know they struggled a little bit with Colorado and Oregon, but ended up covering both of those games, and I think it's when they really step up in class, somebody like Arizona, that missing Clark shows up, especially. So UCLA lean as well. Quick recap of best bets, Matt, before we let people go for this Thursday show. Go to you first, Matthias.
Charleston, Chuck South for the city.
Not Chuck
plus
South.
5.5. Sorry, just Chuck normal,
just
not
Chuck.
Chuck
normal.
Chuck blank. Yeah, Pat Kelsey and co. Get it done for me. Plus 5.5. I think San Jose State still wins, but it's going to be last possession type stuff. So let's go.
My best bet is Houston -19. I think they're going to grab 50% of their misses. And if they don't miss, well, they're going to win anyway. So Houston -19 against Northern Kentucky.
Yep. Big agree on that one. Also think first half's worth a look too. Penn State +3 is my best bet for the Thursday slate. I think that shooting really shocks A&M, something they haven't seen in SEC play. All right, that's it. That's our Thursday show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to BetRivers. Thank you to Jacob behind the scenes, our producer, for helping out. Enjoy the hoops. Enjoy the madness. Friday show coming later. See you then.
And welcome back. It's the Friday edition of the Best Bet Show, Field 68, all sponsored by BetRivers. Matthew Cox, Shimmer, Kai McKeon. The Weavers are weaving through the bracket. We've already hit Thursday. We've hit the playing games, the Pigs. Now it's on our Friday, the last chapter of the first round action. We can skip takeaways. We don't need to debrief what happened. We're looking ahead, looking toward the future here. Let's get right into the matchups here. Michigan State versus USC. Mr. McKeon, what do you do first? I have been on USC all year. I think this team is real. Our boss, Jeff Goodman, thinks Michigan State's going to the Final Four.
Yeah, he's right.
One of us will be dead wrong. Hopefully he's wrong and I'm right. And those who believe in this USC train, which I have been chugging along since the start of the year, profit accordingly. But let's hear your Michigan State stance. I believe you're more of a Sparty believer on this side.
Well, yeah, we'll see here. Second most boring matchup of the first round behind Boise and Northwestern. These teams are almost identical in metrics. USC 43rd in offense, Sparty 41st. USC 48th in defense, Sparty 40. They're both solid. They're not elite. They're good, not great. USC's length might bother Sparty's guards. They have the slight athletic edge. Izzo in March, ? He's inconsistent, Jim. The numbers show it. He's inconsistent. And heck, Andy Enfield, pretty good tournament resume he's got over on his side. USC to Elite Eight, of course, Florida Gulf Coast. I think Michigan State has a higher upside of these teams with the way they can shoot the ball. But my gut is telling me to lean towards the dog. USC +2. I got nothing here quite yet. The coaching and the guard play, I lean towards Michigan State. But I secretly also think A.J. Hoggard is kind of a head case, and that kind of showed through in the Big Ten tournament, Jim.
Yeah, well, he was like getting lectured by Izzo and like rolling his eyes and like,
yeah, ridiculous
coach,
behavior.
All right, coach, whatever. Yeah. Like, dude, it's a Hall of Famer. Maybe give him a little bit of respect, Mr. Junior leader. Matt, I'm hoping you have the data queued up on both of their records in the tournament, so I'll defer that to you. But I do trust the guard play a lot more on Michigan State. Maybe that's unfair slight of Boogie Ellis and Reese Dixon Waters and Drew Peterson. And Enfield's been so good in the tournament that I think I've faded him a bunch and have lost money doing so. So I kind of want to just sit this one out because I don't feel strongly about it. But Kai, darn it, that's not what we do when we're in Vegas. So I'm going to eventually have to pick a side. I'm waiting for one of you to really sell me. So Matt, give me your best Trojan pitch.
Andy Enfield 10-2 against the spread in the NCAA tournament since 2005. Tom Izzo 22-22. So yeah. I mean, I know that's been more rooted in his recent, he hasn't been bad recently, but he's not been as insanely awesome as I think he was when they had like every kid who's played for me went to a Final Four over the 4-year cycle period.
Yep.
I mean, the Middle Tennessee Giddy Potts first round debacle still burns brightly in my memory bank. So I think this version of Michigan State, though, is improving rapidly. And I like that they're kind of leaning into like, wow, we're kind of fun and offensive and NBA pace and spacey with Hoggard and Walker and Hauser making shots, and up front, we're not the usual Izzo team. I just think that matchup's poor against USC, who does have that size and length up front. Not like Isaiah Mobley type size, but still plenty of length. I expect to see Enfield work in some multiple types of defenses. It's a great microcosm of can a Big Ten team adapt to a weird changing style that the Pac-12 presents, which has been kind of the impetus of the Pac-12's recent success. So
Pac-12 actually really good ATS in the tournament.
Right.
Going back to Izzo, like choked away a cover last year against Davidson and then did not cover against Duke. 2 years ago, choked away a cover against UCLA, choked away a win against UCLA that enabled the Bruins to go to the Final Four. Like this has not been a foolproof postseason team the way many perceive. And strangely, Enfield has been nearly foolproof.
Yep. So yeah, just a reminder, make sure we underscore the numbers here. Michigan State laying 2, the total 137 has not budged on side or total. We continue on. We're going to Xavier, Kennesaw State, the Owls, one of multiple Owls in this year's field. Mm-hmm. But Kai, the Musketeers laying 11. Early tip on Friday. This is at Greensboro Coliseum where the ACC tournament was just held. The total's been bet down 1.5. That's actually my strongest angle on this one. I think it feels like a shootout. Surprised to see that money come in on the under here, but what's your angle on this handicap, side or total?
I scooped up a +12 in Kennesaw. This team is hungry, man. They play all upperclassmen. They brought the second most minutes in the country back from last season. They competed this year in the non-con with Florida, VCU, and Indiana. San Diego State killed them, but they competed with these other 3 teams. Xavier's definitely been playing a lot better lately. They can be scary. And Kennesaw State's not great at defending the arc, which kind of scares me. Xavier, they can get hot, 3rd best 3-point shooting team in the country. They will be in trouble if Xavier is hitting shots. But I think Kennesaw is good at just about everything on the defensive end and offensively. They play extremely hard. The size edge could be an issue again, but I believe in the Owls' gym tenacity and their ability to keep this competitive. So I like Kennesaw State here, plus 11.
Yeah, pretty good defensive rebounding team, which is important. The way Xavier's kind of reinvented themselves. Jerome Hunter, just a monster on the offensive glass. They've slowed it down, become a little more defensive since Fremantle went out. Yeah, I'm with you on Kennesaw. Kai, you mentioned getting blown out by San Diego State. That was one of those weird one-off, why is this team going across the country for one road game?
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm kind of throwing that out. The spot was really hideous for that. And the other step up in class, they were competitive. I watched that whole Indiana game. I bet Kennesaw that game. Finished a 14-point margin. Matt, it was not a 14-point game. It was like a 2-point game the entire way. I think Kennesaw competes here too. They've got talent on that roster. Like the recruiting level has been high under Abdur Rahim. Now they're really delivering. They can shoot it. They can compete in the paint. Just feels like a little bit too many points for me. I would lean towards the 11.5 with Kennesaw.
Yeah, so Sean Miller is 17-11 lifetime against the spread in the tournament, but recently, he's lost 2 in a row. Buffalo, Arizona, not his finest moment. Fittingly, Arizona versus alma mater, 71-73, got beat there as well in 2017. And he was 1-4 the last 5 games before that. So it's, again, kind of like the Izzo thing. I think the perception of Sean Miller, yes, great coach, but he's not been some absolute tournament juggernaut against the spread. That's mostly, that's over a decade ago, when he was at Xavier and then early Arizona era. I still like Kennesaw. I'm with you, Kai. I think they can shoot it for sure. And Indiana fans, I think, saw Kennesaw play IU really, really close. Slash and kick. Slash and kick. I mean, I know there's no TJD in that game, but still, they can defend. They're athletic enough to stand hand with the big boys, and they have that kind of equalizer with their ability to knock down shots. So I like the Owls. We continue 4th. UC Santa Barbara versus Baylor. Kai, I know you've been sort of the Babs believer all season.
Babs boy.
Similar narrative here. Talent is very, very legitimate here from the 14 seed line. Definitely a more talented team what you're used to seeing from this type of seed. Baylor, obviously one of the best shot-making teams in the country, but can they defend, I think, is what this ultimately comes down to, especially up front against a pretty vaunted, I would say, Gaucho front line.
Yeah, this team's a 12 or a 13 any other year, basically. This spread's gone up, actually, in favor of Baylor. It's up to 11. It was 10 most of this morning. Many expected Santa Barbara to be a top 100, top 75 team even this season. Their talent is nuts. A.J. Mitchell, Pierre-Louis, among the better backcourts nationally at the mid-major level. Same with Norris and Kelly up front in the front court. I do think there's a big coaching edge here for Scott Drew over Pasternak, and putting it lightly. It's also the best team by far Santa Barbara has faced. It's the only top 100 opponent they've faced outside of UC Irvine, who ranks 99th. But this team is big and strong. They're not your typical mid-major. They have power size. They have power players. Baylor's offense is awesome. They're going to carve up Santa Barbara, who is not the most disciplined team in the world defensively. I just think it might be kind of a shock for Barbara to step up in competition like this against Baylor. I do kind of lean towards Baylor, Jim, but I do think it's a dangerous 14 seed, and 11's getting kind of high.
Yeah, and Baylor has lost to a 14 seed before. We saw it happen with Georgia State. This Baylor team is much better offensively than that one was. They can attack in a lot of different ways here. But I've mentioned all season, I don't like how frequently Baylor switches with their small guards. And if you're going to have smaller guys getting onto A.J. Mitchell, Pierre-Louis, even playing through Andre Kelly or Miles Norris in the post, that is a problem. That's how the Baylor interior defense has been exposed over and over. Really, really bad 2-point percentage defense, like just got smashed in that department in league play. Really, they finished 10th in the Big 12 in both 2-point percentage offense and defense. And I think Santa Barbara actually has the horses to maybe exploit that. So again, Matt, I'm leaning towards the dog. I just do fear the 3-point shooting outpouring that could happen with Baylor. That really, really elite shooting team with those guards.
Yep. No, I agree. Yeah, we'll see. At Big West, I'm not sure if I don't think I have any good data on how well that conference has stacked up in the tournament, but it seems to be usually full of teams that people sleep on, just like no one really sees them play, akin to the Pac-12 There's real talent, but I don't know if they can stack up with Baylor's offensive firepower. A game that should be a lot lower scoring. St. Mary's VCU. I mean, this is like, this feels like the ultimate rock fight. It's tough meets tougher, as I would say, Jim. I'm not sure who the tougher team is. It's two really tough teams. St. Mary's kind of lives and breathes off its toughness mentality. And VCU, that's always how they've been built under Mike Rhodes. They're actually the hotter team right now, I'd argue. As good as St. Mary's has been down the stretch, that their only flaws being those losses to Gonzaga. I hopped in on the Rams. What's your take on this one?
I kind of lean the other way, unfortunately. I don't think St. Mary's is going to turn the ball over, and that's what VCU feeds off of. And this is a junior version of, Duke is rolling against the ACC, by the way. VCU is rolling against a horrific A-10.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you beat a conference that had no one with even a shot at an at-large. So that definitely made me hesitate a little bit. St. Mary's super, super disciplined. I think VCU is going to really struggle with that defense, finding shots. It's going to be a lot of contested mid-rangers because they don't help off of three-point shooters. I don't think Schreiber is going to have the big game. He's been really huge for them of late, but I don't envision that happening against this Gales really well-schooled defense. I'm sure Bennett's going to have a great game plan. So I actually do lean towards St. Mary's. I think people are a little too excited about VCU. Sorry, Matthew.
The haters want to see the Gales fail, a la Gonzaga. But Jim, the market's betting St. Mary's. It's up to 4 and even 4.5 in some places right now.
Come on.
Yeah, going towards St. Mary's. I do think it's a challenging matchup. The VCU's pressure, they might affect St. Mary's, who has talented guards who handle the ball, but they rely heavily on freshmen, right? Freshman playmakers. You never know in March. VCU is certainly a more athletic team, very aggressive. St. Mary's, though, their defense is tough, man. They're connected. They're like Marquette. They're a connected team. They play excellent help side D. They clog the middle while also contesting shots. I think VCU has a real issue scoring in the half court here. So if they can't create live ball turnovers, I kind of think St. Mary's wins comfortably. VCU's defense is excellent, but maybe St. Mary's cutting action, their smartness on that end finds success. I think everyone's going to be on VCU, especially as it crawls up to 4.5. It's kind of the way I lean to on the number, but I don't think it's a gimme. And there's some real matchup angles for St. Mary's, Matthew.
Another factor here, and this is the case, we'll talk, we mentioned this with San Diego State. This is a West Coast team that plays on the East Coast. The game's in Albany. It'll be 11 o'clock local tip for the Gales. I think 2 Eastern, the official tip time. I don't know. I don't know how much that really means anymore. It seems like that tends to be baked into the price, or, teams have gotten better with travel. Huge that this game's on Friday, right? If this is on Thursday, I think that matters more, but the extra day, will help there. And St. Mary's is not a team that is as home cozy as they used to be, right? They kind of challenged themselves a little more this year. They've actually gotten out and played teams on neutral sites, so that should bode well. But still, I think worth noting, as there have been, some pretty big bets on the travel spots historically. We carry forth another mid-major versus high-major showdown here. Vermont versus Marquette, the Golden Eagles. At what point do we stop doubting this team? I think we're all past that at this point. However, Vermont's had plenty of tournament success, Jim. They're catching 11 games in Columbus there. So a little bit closer to Marquette there in the Midwest roots. Any angle for you in this one?
I like Marquette. I think this version of Vermont feasted on the America East and was really not that good in the non-conference. Marquette's defense is trending up, and the offense, we don't really have any questions about that. Haslametrics has he calls it a paper tiger factor, where it's teams that play better against worse competition or better against better competition. And Vermont is super high in terms of they smash bad teams. And that was mostly just thorough domination of the America East. Impressive run through that tournament, yes, but I don't love this current roster stepping up in class. It's very reliant on Dylan Penn and some not super athletic shooting. I think Marquette can roll here, Kai. I like the Golden Eagles.
It's kind of a similar situation to Colgate, Texas, except Vermont's offense is not nearly as good as Colgate's. Can't be taken lightly. They can play. They're a really smart team, and they lost to USC by just 2 this season in the non-conference. So they've shown they compete with power competition. They're a top 10 ball handling team, turnover rate. They do not make careless mistakes. I'm just not sure how much that matters against the length and athleticism we've seen from Marquette and their pressure capabilities. It's way more than anything they've seen in the America East this season. Vermont also cannot take advantage of Marquette's lack of top end size. They can't offensive rebound. Those are Marquette's 2 biggest weaknesses. Vermont's not exploiting that. I think the Golden Eagles score all day long. They're top 10 offense in the country. We talked about their connectivity on that end. Few teams in the country move the ball better. Matt, I think they slice and dice Vermont's D. It's just not the same caliber of athlete on these teams. There's a gap in talent. I do lean towards Marquette. I kind of see the market leaning towards Vermont a little bit. We'll see where the line ends up. This will probably be a day of bet for me, and it'll probably be the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, I think it's one of the least talented teams Becker's had at Vermont, but I think it just shows what a great coach he is, that they're still a fringe top 100 team. They won 15 straight games, and here they are, kind of doing what Colgate's doing, dominating a lesser conference. If they were built, I guess I like how they're built this year because they have been playing slower. Becker showed a little bit of a willingness to play faster with some athletes in recent years. I think this team, if they had a guy like Anthony Lamb, like a true star that could, really rise against a power conference, I'd be more comfortable backing them here. But I think the talent gap's too wide, even against Marquette, who's not like loaded with 5 stars or anything. I just don't see in a way that they really give Marquette many issues. If anything, I think Vermont's going to do more of the chess reactive toggling with their rotations to match with what Marquette brings forth. Nothing farther to add there. We continue with the playing game. Winner of Mississippi State or Pitt, they will be taking on Iowa State, and a potential matchup, Kai, between Iowa State and Mississippi State sounds absolutely disgusting. Yeah. Another early tip here, 210 Central out in Greensboro Coliseum. What's your angle here for either result of the playing game winner between Mississippi State and Pitt?
Yeah, nothing strong right now. Obviously, we'll see who they actually play. My hunch, my gut says Iowa State loses this game, no matter who they play. I love their defense, their grit. I just don't really trust this team really without Caleb Grill yet. We've only seen them beat Baylor. So I'm probably waiting to see. I'm probably going to take either Mississippi State or Pitt over them.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I think their fans are a little exuberant because they're like, look, we smashed Baylor twice, but I think just might be a real good matchup for them. Mm-hmm. Mississippi State can match their physicality. Pitt more of a similar to Baylor, where maybe that matchup works better for Iowa State. They can dominate the paint, limit the 3-point shooting with their length on the perimeter. So that one might be a little more matchup dependent for me, where I would be willing to back Mississippi State. But Otzelberg is a great coach, and that team can really, really defend. So I'm not going to emphatically go one way or the other yet. At least not until we see the playing game to get there.
I think I'm probably the biggest believer in Iowa State in terms of like their ability to make a second weekend run, just because their defense is such a sturdy foundation, and they have some kind of hot and cold shot makers. If they hit the hot wave, then obviously in a tournament do or die format, you can make a run. But nothing else profound here. Next, we have Creighton NC State. Kai, where did Creighton NC State rank on your most boring / most exciting first round matchups? It feels like this one's been not discussed as much, even though there are some pretty fascinating stylistic angles here. Okay, I think no one's really talked about it. I think Creighton has kind of fallen under the radar. They feel like a real dark horse. They haven't played well down the stretch. It's kind of why they fell lower on the seed line and why people aren't taking them as seriously. I think maybe a month ago, we'd probably be like, oh, this is, kind of like how people talk about TCU, right? 2 6 seeds with really, really high upside, haven't all the way been at their best all season. And NC State sneaks in, right? Another ACC team, bubble benefitter who can really shoot it, really space it. What's your take here?
Yeah, Creighton laying 5 here. Underseeded when you look at analytics. Creighton, and a team in NC State that had a real case to miss the dance entirely. I kind of think NC State is in trouble. They've had a lot of success this year playing through DJ Burns on the block, and he's a beast, but it's very hard for me to see him getting anything easy against Kalkbrenner. He has the weight, but Kalk is just such an elite shot blocker, elite length, defends without fouling. And the perimeter defense for Creighton is excellent. They're quick. They have long guards. They can harass Turquavian and Jarkel Joyner. They take away the 3 ball. They force teams to get into the mid-range or go against Kalkbrenner. And on the other end, Creighton really takes care of the ball. They can get stagnant in the half court for sure, but I think having a guy like Baylor Shireman this year in the tournament is going to be a real game changer. I lean towards Creighton right now, Jim, at -5.
I love Creighton here. I think they are a better Clemson, and Clemson absolutely smashed this NC State team 3 times. The physicality in the paint is similar, and they're not going to get totally worked by NC State's guards. Like they've got actual bigger guards that can defend on the perimeter there. And I don't like that NC State can't move Kalkbrenner around. Like that's what Villanova did to this Creighton team and moved him. And then you don't have the rim protector around because Eric Dixon's knocking down threes. But DJ Burns can't do that. He's going to be in the paint. They don't really have a floor stretching option at the 5. So I don't like how that sets up for them. I'll be back in Creighton here, Matthias. One little note, Greg McDermott, one of the strongest under coaches in the NCAA tournament. It's like 24-13 when he plays to the under. So if you're interested in that, obviously it's kind of a high number, but if we think Creighton's defense is going to lock up those guards, then perhaps tempo gets limited enough, and that could be a decent under angle.
Yeah, Jim, I think that reason right there, the matchup similarity between Clemson and Creighton is why I'm not backing NC State, because I thought this was a very interesting stat. Bet Labs, since 2007, teams who lost their last game before the tournament by 20 or more points are 21-12 against the number in the tournament. So whether that's just like an extra motivational psychological juice, or the market overreacts to a really terrible last effort, I don't know. That's a pretty strong trend. I don't know if I'd go against that, I'd say, but the matchup similarities you mentioned, maybe there's a real reason for that just to repeat itself, and it did 3 times against Clemson this season. So next up here on the outline, I've already lost the outline. Where did it go? There it is. We're going to talk UConn Iona. How fun is this one? Dan Hurley. UConn fans have him under the microscope, Jim, as they have all of the potential, all the talent, and they are playing their best ball right now. But Rick Pitino can be a landmine. Spread felt low to me, even with the Rick Pitino factor. What's your angle on this handicap?
Yeah, I thought it was a little low too. It's important that Iona has size to compete. Nelly Jr. Joseph, Osborne Chima inside can at least somewhat hold up against the Sonogo Klingon blitz in the paint. UConn's definitely opened things up more. Kai playing a little bit more small ball. Jackson handling the ball more. That has more shooting around him than Caravan, spacing the floor really well. They're playing Sonogo at the top of the key as like a distributor. So perhaps that helps. Moving Iona's defense around could be a problem for them. And Pitino's a great game planner. He's going to come in with a fantastic setup of a game plan. Potentially could be conference rivals soon if Pitino ends up at St. John's, as is heavily rumored right now. I kind of want to just back Pitino based on the coaching angle, but as Matt said, I don't love the number. It feels a little bit lower than I would have liked.
Yeah, it's
at 9 currently, by the way. Sorry, yeah,
9.5 now at BetRivers. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm another game I'm waiting to see where it ends up before I bet it. UConn's the most underseeded team in the bracket. They're number 4 nationally in KenPom, and yet a 4 seed. They could be the best team in the country when playing well. We know Iona's an awesome mid-major. They have not played a power team all season, so it's really hard to know how they really stack up against elite competition. Dan Hurley, he's never made a Sweet 16. Pitino is just such a better coach, like all day, every day, twice on Sunday. If you like coaching angles, it's Pitino, man. It's not even close. The sheer size is going to be a problem for Iona. They are big. They are strong. Again, like some other teams, like Santa Barbara, more athletes than your typical mid-major. But if Junior Joseph gets in foul trouble, I think it's over for the Gales. They do, Matt, try this one on for size. Iona has a case for the better backcourt with Jenkins and Clayton versus Newton and Hawkins. I'm not sure I'm quite there.
I'll hear it.
But it's not a huge gap, I don't think. I just think Iona has a tough time scoring. UConn's going to dominate the glass. Number 1 offensive rebounding rate versus number 272 on defense. Again, though, big matchup on coaching. It's kind of a game matchup versus game plan matchup. Hence, I'm waiting for this spread to get kind of hammered out before I bet it.
I think I like the under as I think about this more, right? Like Rick wants to keep this into the half court. He wants no part of getting to a track meet. Maybe he does pressure though, which I guess could make this more helter-skeltery, but still, I think he wants to limit possessions here and give himself, tilt the odds as much in his favor as he possibly can. And this game is worth noting. This game is in Albany, correct? So in the same little nook as Drake, Miami, Kent State, Indiana, VCU, St. Mary's. So it should be a really good turnout for this game with both teams being fairly close to home. So little audition perhaps for Mr. Pitino and his potential leapfrog to his next gig. All right, another play-in game we'll talk very quickly because I think this is kind of a no-brainer. Purdue versus the winner of Texas Southern or Fairleigh Dickinson. Projected spread going to be like Purdue minus 22, low 20s seems to be just an average of what you're going to see here. I don't really care. I think Purdue wins by a lot. Purdue first half would be my lean, regardless of matchup outcome. Any takes, guys, are strong on either Fairleigh Dickinson or Texas Southern?
I think it could be like 30-point spread. Both these teams are like close to 300 in KenPom. Purdue easily. Edie's going to have like 40 and 30. The pressure might spook the Boilers a little bit, but I I don't see them being close to Purdue.
Really like the first half angle, Matt. I think Edey just comes out, dominates. Maybe they don't play him that much in the second half. And there could be some sort of backdoor angle, especially if the spread is really, really inflated, which it probably should be because of how poorly both Texas Southern and FDU rank. But I think first half, with the quick turnaround, the travel that the 16 seed winner will have to do, playing Wednesday and then playing against Purdue on Friday, I'm into that first half Purdue.
Johnny Jones 5-2 against the spread in the NCAA tournament. I don't have the breakdown of. I think most of those 5 were playing game wins. But still, Jones has been a good coach. He's clearly dominates the SWAC tournament. I think he actually has a right to maybe give Purdue a run for their money, but I'm just not seeing it. A very intriguing. We'll call this the Bryce Hopkins Bowl. Kentucky against Providence. Ed Cooley versus John Calipari. I think one of the more covered games of the first round for sure, despite its relatively lackluster seeding implications here. But Jim, I'll go to you. Kentucky laying 4, total at 145. This one's also in Greensboro. I think the line's about right. I don't really trust either team, to be honest, at this point. It's one of those games where it's like, how can you bet this one really confidently? So I don't have any action here. What's your lean?
Yeah, Kentucky, you got to figure out who's playing, who's healthy. That's going to be something we kind of figure out as this week develops. But I do like Ed Cooley as an underdog. I know they didn't quite get there with UConn. I think they ended up coming back and pushing if you had a really good number, but did not cover most numbers in that one. But I like that they showed signs of life, Kai. That's a very positive thing. I was worried that after the Seton Hall game, then you get into the tournament, you get blown out again. Like maybe this team had just rolled over or Ed Cooley's half a foot out the door or something. But that battle that they showed late against UConn gives me a little more hope. And of course, there's the Hopkins angle of how dare you not play me last year? Look how good I am now. I lean towards Providence on the number, at least getting this into like a one possession game.
And this spread might not be done moving towards Kentucky. I already see it at 4.5 in another book, and it started 3.5. Ed Cooley's a dog, man.
Give me 5,
I agree.
please.
If it gets to 5, I'm taking Providence. Kentucky, if Casey Wallace gets announced in, I think you see the spread keep moving for Kentucky. They're a dangerous team, obviously, and Providence just snuck into the field. Kentucky's not going to get beat on the glass. Usually that's an edge for the Friars, but obviously Kentucky has a lot of size to throw at them, combat them. Providence interior defense a little bit weak. Kentucky should probably have an advantage there. If all healthy, I think Kentucky moves on. But again, I trust Ed Cooley more than I trust John Calipari. And like Jim said, if we see 5, I'm taking Providence. If it's below that, game time decision on who I take.
Yeah, the one concerning thing, Providence not good away from home. Like all of their big wins have been at the AMP. They're 6-9 away from home. If you filter Bart Torvik since February 1st, they're 92nd. Like they just have not been good of late. That does spook me. But at 5, hopefully it gets there. I would take it. It's 2 on Ken Pump, by the way. So the market is taking a stance on Kentucky.
Yeah, let's get to another tightly contested 6-11 matchup here. Perhaps the biggest coin flip of all of them. That's Drake, Miami, Florida. Everyone and their mother, Kai, is back.
Right?
5-12. Oh, this is 5-12. 5-12. Excuse me.
Yep.
Everyone and their mother is backing Drake, and I am on that. I'm a part of that mob. I've already played Drake myself. Yes, the line is very, very low. Just looking at the programs and what you expect to see, but I think it's justified. I think Drake is. These two are basically equal, so I'm getting 2.5 free points on a neutral floor. That's how I'm handicapping this. Games in Albany been bet down to 2.5 at the opener. What's your look here, Mr. McKeon?
Yeah, laughably short spread, but I took Drake also. One of the oldest, most experienced teams in the country with a coach I trust, a fantastic defense, and a player in Tucker DeVries who can create his own shot and take over in late game situations. O'Meara is a question mark. If he's out, Drake is certainly a heavier play. Miami's guards are a problem for sure, but they can be erratic. And this Drake team isn't one to sort of like lay over and die. They won't back down. You're not going to get easy looks against Drake. You're not going to get second chance opportunities against Drake either. On the other end, Drake's offense definitely stagnates. If they aren't hitting shots, they can really struggle in the half court. You saw that a couple games against Missouri State. They're a good shooting team, but they don't have much creation outside of DeVries. Roman Penn can drive, but it's not reliable. Jim, both teams shoot the ball really well. Both teams have really good coaches, but I'm going Drake. I'm going Drake plus 2.5 here. Hey, maybe we'll see 3 on game day, but I doubt it. I bet it goes the other way.
I think it goes the other way too because of Omier. If he's not going to be able to play, or even is probably going to be highly limited, that's definitely at a point in Drake's favor. If you look at the on-off numbers, which aren't the end-all be-all, but Miami is 16 points better per 100 when he's out there. He limits them, or his absence limits them on both ends. I'm going to be on Drake as well. I wish I had gotten the +3. I'll probably end up taking the +2.5 here shortly. I'm at the MVC has been really, really tough in the NCAA tournament. It's a slow grinder. They're comfortable in postseason-esque atmospheres. Sure. Yep. We've had a couple of Bradley teams be really, really tough in the past few years. I was saying I was going to bet whoever won that conference tournament, whether it was Drake, Bradley, or SIU, any of those top three with elite defenses. I'm gonna roll with Drake here as well. The Bulldogs, even though Miami had success in the postseason last year, I think the Omier limitation is the one that tilts me towards Drake.
Love it. That's a consensus sweep on Jersey Drake. We continue. Gonzaga against Grand Canyon. A sort of unsuspecting victory from the Lopes out of the WAC. Unsuspecting because they were without their best player, point guard Javon Blackshear, which they have been for a while now. They've reinvented themselves. A testament to how good Bryce Drew is as a coach. Yeah. However, Kai, the market is on Gonzaga. Some early money has pushed this from 15 up to 16. I see some 15.5s out there. It's not like a crazy amount of money for Gonzaga, but certainly with the way they play in the WCC tournament, you can understand why. I had them in my Final Four. However, I have Grand Canyon on the number in this opening round. I did take the 16 this morning, full disclosure. I like the Lopes. I like how they're defending. Your thoughts?
I can't believe Grand Canyon's here without Blackshear. It's incredible. I like the over in this game. Grand Canyon's defense, it's 157 at BetRivers. Grand Canyon's defense is a sieve. I know you said you think they're defending better now, but I don't think they can contain Gonzaga. They're going to score at will all day. Ray Harrison is everything for them offensively, and I think you can game plan that. When you're so focused on one guy for your offense, I think it's easy to take that away in a tournament setting. Certainly think Mark Few is a good coach. Now Grand Canyon can shoot, and that definitely gives them a chance, but the talent here is not close, and I think you kind of saw at the end of the year and in the WCC tournament, Gonzaga's in FU mode. I think they're kind of going to run through a couple teams here. The spread does feel touch high. I'll give you that, Matt. But I really think that Gonzaga that Gonzaga scores 90 points, Jim.
Yeah, over is easily the thing I'm most comfortable with this game. Grand Canyon's been the biggest over team in the country this year from a percentage of game. Like they've been a hammer in that direction. And with the way Gonzaga's playing offense, I could pretty easily see them scoring quite a bit here. Even if Grand Canyon tries to slow the game down, it's going to be difficult to do that. It does feel high, the spread, Matt. I'm not going to bet the side. I'm just going to bet the over and hope for points. Give me 100 to pick your number for Grand Canyon. I'll accept whatever you offer me.
Well, I hope it's 85. That'll be a cover for me.
Right.
They are just shooting the absolute crap out of it. And you could argue that's just a regression, ticking time bomb. I kind of just will ride with the mojo and momentum because of Bryce Drew and how good of a coach he is and how much I respect him. I confidently backed him. Who did they play? Is it Alabama first round? Like another fast-paced, highly talented team, and they covered that game. And that team was better than this version for sure, and they had real size up front, which I think could
Iowa,
be,
2 years ago.
Was it Iowa? I thought it was Iowa. Grand Canyon played Bama that sounds right. Year. But anyway, I think it's Iona played Bama. That's right. Rigo's Ripatino versus Bama. I think GCU competes to a degree here, but the Zags are awfully dangerous on offense right now. Oh, no, not this game. I can't. This game makes me so mad here. FAU against Memphis. Yeah. Like, my Owls completely screwed by the bracket, by the selection committee to beat UAB by 1 million points, to get no credit for that. Just kind of goes to show that conference tournament championship, especially the second weekend, don't mean anything. Regardless, they are catching 2.5 against a red-hot Memphis team who just took Houston without Marcus Sasser to the woodshed, Jim. I haven't officially bet my Owls because I do think this Memphis team is real and the matchup's tough. But I think because I've put all of my reputational chips in on the Owls, I'll probably bet them when I get to Vegas with you guys. But it's not something I'm going to endorse as a pragmatic prognosticator to those out there betting.
Yeah, I love both these teams. I've made a little list of teams I wanted to bet on in the tournament, and I only got to 3. It was just teams like, okay, between coach and the way they're playing, all this stuff, I want to be on them. And FAU and Memphis are both on there, and Penn State.
Oh, that's so tough. That's so tough.
So like, great. Oh, they're playing each other. Fantastic. That's real fun. So I have a really, really hard time with this game because I think they're both outstanding. FAU can maybe spread them out a little bit with how much they space the floor and their shooting. but Memphis is rolling. The athleticism, the physicality. Kendrick Davis appears to be healthy. There's always a risk he rolls that ankle again. It's happened like 5 times this season, but you can't count on that. That'd be a tough thing to bake into the handicap. Kai ultimately probably lean towards getting the 2.5 or laying them, but I bet against Memphis last year in an 8-9 game. It didn't go well. Why did I bet Boise? You idiot, Jim. So I have not decided on this one. It's going to be a late call.
I was hoping to see 3, and I'm seeing 2 now in places. I think it's going to go towards the other way, which sucks. Hey, smart market. Shame on the committee for making this an 8-9 game. It might be the best game of the opening round. KenPom teams 19-26, and yet we're in an 8-9 game here. FAU has shown it can beat power teams. They beat Florida this year. They beat North Texas and UAB, who are basically power team caliber. Both teams are really experienced. FAU has that connectivity factor that I love. Is there an answer for Kendrick Davis? I'm not sure they can stay in front one-on-one, but they play great team defense, and they're very sound inside. 11th in the country in 2-point field goal percentage allowed, can force Memphis to be shooters. Memphis can shoot a bit, but it's not what they prefer. Memphis's D, obviously very solid. FAU, very good ball handlers, won't turn it over easily, and they're used to athletic defenses. They've seen a lot of that in Conference USA. FAU can stroke it. Memphis allows a ton of threes. I think that's a little matchup angle there. I lean towards FAU. Again, I really wanted 3. Doesn't look like we're going to get 3. I'll probably end up taking 2.5 in Vegas, Matt.
Here's my word of advice to Penny Hardaway. The problem is he doesn't actually do this, is you need to post up one of your bigs against FAU's fourth guard. That's how you beat FAU. I saw it up close and personal with Isaiah Crawford of Louisiana Tech. They basically play 4 out and 1 in. And if you can post up that fourth guard, that quasi 4-man, you can have success. Problem is Memphis, looking at shot quality, 5th percentile in terms of post-up frequency this year. So it's just not really in Penny's bag. Kind of bodes well for my Owls. Makes me a little more confident that when I blindly back them, I won't be taking a fool's errand there. So let's go Owls. Get it done, Dusty.
They can. Like DeAndre Williams could.
Right, they should be able to. Exactly.
But if they're not going to run that, then it's a problem.
All right, Kai, we're talking Kansas State, Montana State next. I have I get bad goosebumps thinking about what Montana State did or didn't do last year in the first round against Texas Tech. Completely outclassed. Now that Texas Tech team, I think, was more potent and more dangerous than this Kansas State team. That could be disrespecting Kansas State, so apologies. Do you see any shades of that repeating this year, or is this Montana State team giving more confidence than that last year debacle?
Yeah, it is kind of scary. I've seen a lot of people like Montana State here, and I kind of want to as well. I feel like they compete, but the spread's low, man. 8 points is not a lot. And we were all over Montana State last year, and they got destroyed. They also lost to Oregon by 30 this season. They've certainly been playing better as of late, and they have a great duo. Battle and Bello is a fantastic duo. It is a team mostly of upperclassmen. I think they will get to the line at least. They're 5th nationally in free throw attempt rate. K-State 300th in free throw attempt rate allowed. But K-State's clearly more talented. They're skilled offensively. And I think they're fine with physicality with Keontae Johnson, who should also, by the way, live at the line. Like other mid-majors that are dangerous, Montana State is built like a power team. They can defend top 75 defense, and that's definitely projectable. Jim, I guess I lean towards Montana State, but if it gets much lower than 8, I'm probably going to end up taking Kansas State because I think this team's being a little bit ignored right now by the masses.
Yeah, potentially. We talked about how the first time you see K-State with Noel and Johnson, it's really hard to figure out. Tang is a great coach. Mm-hmm. That's an issue, but I think this is a much better matchup for Montana State than last year with Texas Tech. Texas Tech was one of the best paint rim defenses in the entire country. You just didn't score in the paint. Kansas State, way more vulnerable there. Montana State, one of the highest post usage offenses in the country. Play through Bello. They play through Asabor. Those guys, I think, will be able to score, get to the free throw line. Don't think of Kansas State as a super intimidating rim defense. And then Caleb Fuller is actually a fantastic matchup for Keontae Johnson as far as a mid-major option. He's a strong, well-built wing. He's very physical, probably get in foul trouble, but I do think they can at least battle and not get totally outclassed there. And Darius Brown was the defensive player of the year in this league, and you got him to throw at Noel. That helps a little bit as well. So, Matt, Montana State, best bet for me, +8. I just think the matchup is so much better than it was last year, and they do have some tournament experience after getting smoked in that game.
I agree, and I think Sprinkle's a great coach. We talked about the Horizon shortcomings in this tournament. Big Sky, 5-12 against the spread. since 2007. You
tell
take
me
away
about
the Eastern Washington cover by a nose. Was it 2 years ago against Kansas? I think we were all very much involved in that game as anti-Kansas with Ewash. Before that, the last time a Big Sky team has covered was 2014, Weber State. I don't know if there's anything to that. Could be circumstantial. However, it does feel like the Big Sky tends to be an offensive-minded team that gets kind of exposed when the tournament, So I don't know. Something to keep an eye on there. And when you talk about how they are built to play up to a power conference, I like when my mid-majors are built differently, maybe. They provide more of a wrench as opposed to back to my point, that's strength on strength. But we'll see. I'm on the Montana State Bobcats as well. I was worried, though, as I looked closer at it, Jim. It won't matter, though. Best bet's a lock. Follow it.
Good.
Two more here. And the Indiana patrons will not enjoy this conversation, I assume, but IU is playing Kent State. Everyone's on Kent State. Everyone in the IU zeitgeist is sounding the alarms. We're going to get rolled by 20. My friend group texts are littered with, doomsday types of messaging. Kai, can you offer any words of comfort for my Hoosier brethren out there, or is this a loss to a really, really, really good Flash team?
Well, there's some support in the market for Indiana right now. I see 4.5 now at some places. BetRivers still 4. I love Kent State. The line does feel low, I'll admit, but Kent State's a defensive team, and top 40 defense in the country. That's scary. They lost to Houston by 5 at Houston, lost by 7 to Gonzaga at Gonzaga. That pretty much proves they can compete with anybody in the country, but they are small. Indiana feasts on smaller teams. TJD, he's getting his. I love Chris Payton, but he's overmatched here, and Race Thompson just adds to that. Guard play, you could argue Sincere Carey might be the most reliable player on the floor, and Jacobs is very good. Hood-Schifino is the most talented without a doubt, but he's a freshman, and freshmen cannot be totally relied on necessarily in March. I think Sinderoff's a better coach than Woodson if you're going for a coach angle. I'm worried about Kent State scoring consistently, but Sincere Carey could take over games against senior guards in March. I'm going Kent State, Jim. I would like to get 4.5 or 5. Hopefully it gets to 5 eventually. That's the way I'm leaning, though, for the Flashes.
Yeah, I agree the number is shorter than I wanted it to be, but you mentioned Hood-Schifino's being a freshman. He's going to get the Malik Jacobs matchup, and Jacobs is the defensive player of the year in the MAC. He is a terrific glove on the perimeter. I think if you kind of cut off that Hood-Schifino playmaking aspect to this offense, it's really, really reliant on TJD, who is obviously awesome and an All-American. But Kent State has bodies, multiple guys to throw at him. This isn't some smaller mid-major team that can't step up in class. Kai mentioned their efforts on the road this year. Matt, I just don't love the number. It does feel like at some point, if Indiana's up late, then you get a couple of free throws, you lose by 5 or 6, and it's a tough non-cover. But I think there is a great chance for Kent State to compete there. I will be backing the Golden Flashes at hopefully 4.5.
I completely forgot about the Malik Jacobs factor. I know he exists. I know he's a great player. I just forgot that last year, I think Carey almost won Defensive Player of the Year. He was their ball stopper and two-way stalwart. And I think it kind of wore him out. And this year Jacobs has kind of assumed that defensive stopper role, and Carey can still, guard, lock down people on defense. But I think he conserves more on offense. Either way, that's two dudes they can throw at Hood-Schifino. And that's where this game will be won and lost, because TJD will get his inside. He will score. I think 30 is an easy level for him to get to. I mean, he dominated. Kent State got dominated by another big. I think Timmy had 30 something against him.
Yeah, he's the only reason Gonzaga won that game. He was awesome. Right.
And I think that's just, you take that same blueprint, apply here. That's going to be a good thing for Kent State, because the role players for IU have not been consistent. I think the injury to Geronimo late or middle of the year hurt. They haven't found a consistent third banana. There's been a different guy occasionally on night in, night out. But since the Purdue loss, IU has not looked like a team that's firing on all cylinders. So I think there are some cracks that Kent State can expose, especially with such a good coach and Rob Senderoff. But I'm sure there's also a chance IU wins by 20 and we all get laughed at for being the cute group that cuddles up to Kent State. All right, last game here, play-in game. The Horned Frogs, Jim, have to get your take on your squad facing the winner of the Pig, Arizona State and Nevada. What's your look here, potential matchups, and where the value might fall?
Man, I don't really respect either of those teams a ton, Nevada or Arizona State. Not a big fan, and I love TCU. Lampkin fully entered the portal today. He is not on the team. He's gone. Hopefully that is a distraction removed. They looked great against Kansas State in the Big 12 tournament. Did come up a little short against Texas, but look how well Texas is playing. I mean, look what they did to Kansas in the final. Maybe actually makes TCU's effort looked more impressive there. I'm going to probably be betting TCU, Kai. I would bet they take money because of the shorter turnaround and the idea that TCU is maybe a little undervalued by analytics because of injuries. But I'll be with it. I got to bet my Horned Frogs. Been loyal to them all year.
Yeah, whereas I think that Iowa State is in trouble in their game against Mississippi State or Pitt, I'm not worried about TCU as much here. Arizona State's talented enough to beat them. And again, they're high variance, and that can definitely be a problem in small sample size theaters. But I don't really have an angle with Nevada beating TCU. TCU obviously probably wants to see Nevada. That would be my guess. Matt, I'm probably in TCU, but again, we'll see the line. We'll see the actual matchup when it comes to it.
Yeah, I'm not as in on TCU as you guys are, but I don't think either matchup here poses any real concern. I think they probably march on. But yeah, we'll see what the line comes out. Probably close to a touchdown, depending on the winner. Again, one of those teams that we've seen a big discrepancy between market and KenPom line, so I'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, nothing official here for me. But that does officially wrap up today's presentation.
Best bets.
After we give you our best bets, of course. And I will rehash mine real quickly here to start off. VCU against St. Mary's. Official number was, let me confirm.
You get 4, actually, Matthew.
I think I got 4. I will take 4. Jim, to you.
Montana State +8. Unfortunately, I think it is 8 at BetRivers. It's 8.5, like almost everywhere else. So if you're out there, don't take 8. Find your 8.5. I will sit on my 8. Kai, hopefully I don't need it, but I think they can compete with K-State. Much better matchup for the Bobcats than last season when Texas Tech just demolished them.
And yeah, I didn't actually say my best bet, so apologies, but Drake +2.5 is going to be my best bet. If you like Drake, I would take him. I think it's going to close less than 2.5, but
agreed.
Bulldogs win and outright. If you're a money line type of guy, sure, take them.
That's all we have. It is officially that time. Dig in, feet up, or I guess stay on your feet and go bonkers like we will. Either approach you want to take to watching these games, do enjoy them in whatever fashion you so choose. Winners only, gambling gods, that would be appreciated. And thank you for stopping by. Official schedule for the Weave to be determined. Just follow us on Twitter. That's at 3MW_CBB. We will keep you posted there as we confirm. But until then, again, winners only, please.